This is the Danger Close podcast, Beyond the Books with me, Jack Carr.
Welcome to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. My guest today is Australian Army veteran Matt Willy Williams. Following a deployment to Afghanistan, he was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. After chemo treatments, he embraced a passion for journalism and traveled to Ukraine, where he reported extensively from the front lines. You can follow his journey on Instagram at willy.beating.cancer and watch his extremely informative YouTube videos on Ukraine at WillyOAM. And now, without further ado, Matt Willy Williams. You might see that I collaborate with Ironclad on a lot of different projects. In fact, I have worked with them on my book trailers, this podcast, as well as a few other exciting endeavors that are currently in development. Ironclad teams up with some of the biggest brands in the world to create dynamic films, series, podcasts, and ad campaigns. If you are a brand or individual looking to elevate your content or start a podcast, don't hesitate to reach out through their website. This is Ironclad.com, and make sure you follow them on all major platforms at This Is Ironclad. Oh man, dude, I'm so glad we're getting to do this. It's we kind of connected, a while ago,
bro. Yeah. I'm fucking stoked on this.
Yeah,
and I was thinking, I need to right in the beginning be like, because your listeners they know you're a really nice guy, but I'm like, no, I've got a story about you. It's like, we'll prove this to them. Like, I know you're a big shot, but you're a hell of a fucking nice guy. When I was first diagnosed, I get in the mail this book, your terminal list book, and you've written in it, Willy, you're an inspiration to us all. Stay strong, brother. Strength and honor. And man, that meant so fucking much to me. And I still keep this as a memento, man. And it really fucking meant a lot because it was someone succeeding at such a high level is still willing to be hey, these private diggers at the bottom of the chain. And private soldiers, you can feel just a shit kicker. And it's fuck these, that's the brotherhood at work across oceans, across whatever. So I just wanted to thank you for that, man. And let your audience know you're a, for want of a better term, a top G.
Oh man. Well, hey, I appreciate that. And I've been, sending prayers and thoughts your way since the beginning, since we got linked up all those years ago. And I mean, what an amazing journey you've had. And it's true. It's such an inspiration to anyone who knows you, who follows you, and you'll never know how wide that circle is, just because obviously social media, you don't know exactly how many people it's incredible what you've done and how many people you've inspired through just being tough and sharing this journey. But speaking of this journey, I mean, let's start there. And because it's been crazy, I want to talk all about Ukraine and the news today that we just heard. Wagner Group lead went apparently. I guess we'll see because I guess you never know. But shot down. Is that what you think and what we're seeing?
I've only been up for 25 minutes, so that's what I've seen, man. It's 5 a.m. in Australia. Yeah. Basically, that's what I saw was a plane with a bloody wing falling off it. It's falling out of the air.
Crazy. And there's so much footage of it too, which is pretty interesting. We'll get to that. But your story, I mean, into the Australian Army and Afghanistan, coming home, a brain cancer diagnosis, going through all that, then going to Ukraine, doing some amazing reporting on the ground and continuing to do incredible reporting back here. For people who aren't following your either Instagram or your YouTube, where you're interviewing people, and I mean, you're doing such an in-depth analysis of what's going on in the ground there. Let's kick it off at the beginning, into the Australian Army. How did you grow up and did you always want to be a soldier?
Yeah, man, I always just wanted to be a soldier. There was going to be nothing else. It was nothing else was going to itch that scratch. From the day mum and dad could even remember, they're that was just what Matt was doing.
Yeah.
And it became a real reality for me a little bit later in life when I actually joined up at during high school, so year 12, which I know our schooling system works a bit differently, but I'm 18. at that age. And yeah, joined up, got everything ready. And 2 days after school ended, after graduation, and anyone who's thinking about joining the fucking any level of the army, whether it's the infantry, whether you're cleaning floors or you're shooting out of helicopters, I don't care what you're doing, finish bloody high school, because one, high school's fun as fuck. Like when you're like that age, and just the bonds you get with people, and you actually learn how to network with other people, with teachers, whatever. Like if I joined the army at 16, I reckon I would have been fucked. Like I might have made it, like once I'd be gone like beyond like Lance Corporal level, it would have been like, well, I'm an idiot. So you actually advance quicker by just staying in school a bit longer, at least I found. But
you can join at age 16?
Yeah, you can join. You can at least start the process on day of 16 in Australia. And it might take you till 16, 6 months or 9 months until you're actually in. But yeah, you can join at that age. We had, while I was in Afghan, we had 2 guys' 18th birthdays.
Wow.
There. What was like, and I remember telling them, like, this is a lot different to my 18th. like
Wow.
Shit, I was out drinking beers at the pub, like, because, we actually have real drinking age laws here.
Well, when can you drink in Australia?
18. But it's like, it's pretty fucking loose before that.
Okay.
They're Australians, mate. Like,
Hey,
you put an island full of convicts. What do you
exactly.
expect?
An island of convicts. Love it.
Yeah, man. Everyone has this view of Australia as just like this, like California of the world. And it's like, no, that's Melbourne. The rest of it's fucking loose. But yeah, man, I joined up, infantry soldier. I originally wanted to go commandos, which is like your direct entry special forces, and then you've got the SAS, who's not direct entry, like you then have to do everything else. But at that age, they were like, look, man, like if you've never served and you don't have this, go in infantry, and then like the direct entry is more for guys who are getting back in from things. And I'm like, yeah, sweet. And when I got in, I'm like, thank fuck I didn't do that, because I would have got smoked. Like, I'm an Aussie, man. I've never picked up a gun in my life. It's like, holy shit. It's a big sort of swing change. But yeah, man, I joined up and I really never looked back. I didn't want to ever leave.
Oh, really?
But a tumor in my brain, like I wanted to be like a sergeant major of a unit, like 30-year guy, like top digger, top soldier there. Australians use the term digger and soldier like interchangeably, for like non-officers.
Okay.
So yeah, that's just how it went for me, man. Did Afghan, pretty slow period in Afghan, like, not super slow, but not, not the early or late trips. It was 2017. So it's a lot of been dying down to Kabul sort of work. But man, I found that like it was very fulfilling for me, like those trips. And it actually taught me a shitload, more close personal protection, move around the city, things like that. And it's actually been a very handy to guys now in my trip to get out and get jobs, because all the contracting jobs are in that sort of world. Yeah. Armored movements, things like that.
What was the train up like? You sign up, put your name on the page, and how long does it take between like starting that process to join the military in Australia to showing up at boot camp? And then what's that like, your version of boot camp? And then is there some advanced training? And then how long are you with your unit before you go overseas? What was that process like?
Yeah, so I'm going to pull some numbers out my ass, because I'm like, oh,
you can get close. You can get close.
Yeah.
Give or take.
So they actually wanted me a lot earlier, because I got into the army in like, say, March of 2014 was when they accepted me. Like, yep, you are going to be a candidate who gets into the military. And then I was still in high school, and they were like, oh, we want you like next month. And I was like, can I push that to actually finish school? And they were fine with that. So they pushed until November. So I finished school on the 23rd of November, and I was at boot camp, like at what we call Kapuka, on the 25th. And I still say I was hungover from graduation. Like I rock up, like, what the fuck, long hair, hungover, fat. And then you're like, like every recruit rocks up, and then just getting fucking thrashed day one, man, head shaved, running around, fucking around, doing whatever. People yelling at you, people that now you look back and you're like, you're just some fucking like truck driver with a hook on their chest. Like now you'd be like, fucking don't talk to me like that. But that was the hardest 3 months of my life, man, because the adaptation from civilian to like what they want to create as a soldier, that's very difficult, because and you and I'd be the same, and most infantrymen, frontline soldiers aren't like this. We're not that star soldier in the uniform with the medals and the clean everything. We are field soldiers. We want to be out in the field with the boys, rucking packs and shooting shit. That's what we want to be. That's what we want to do. But those initial 3 months of boot camp is to just make everyone, whether you're a cook, a driver, are going to be in the SAS, you all have to baseline as a soldier.
Yeah.
And that's hard. You're making beds, shitty, just, rifle shoots that are like fucking piss easy, random up the guts fucking attacks. You're not doing anything you're not doing like urban warfare. You don't know what you're really doing. Like it might be like, oh yeah, walk around this door. So that Kapuka, that 3 month basic, that was fucked for me. I hated every minute of it, every second of it. I just hated it.
I've blocked mine out. Like I have to really dig to think up either boot camp or then later OCS, because they're pretty much the same thing. Just getting yelled at by a Marine in one and Navy person in the other. But it's I blocked those out because it was for the exact same reason.
But then the next step. Oh, sorry. The next step was then fucking awesome, man.
Okay, we get some more advanced training. Well, what rifle did you shoot in boot camp that you have to qualify on or whatever?
Yeah, so we were on the Steyr AUG. So it's an AUG, but the Steyr is like the Australian Army variant of it. That's an SA2, I believe, at that time, because we've gone through so many fucking iterations of that piece of shit, like that plastic bullpup, like. And I see these Yanks, like I see like Garand Thumb, them like, oh, the AUG's really good. And I'm like, shut up. Like, I love Garand Thumb. I'm like, man, your videos are awesome. The AUG is a fucking piece of shit. Like, I can't, fuck that.
Yeah. Oh, man. What pistol?
Browning 9mm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. We're back in the fucking trenches, baby.
That's awesome. Hey, that's awesome.
And then, we basically the same weapon suite as the States. 5.56. We call it a mini mi, but you guys, I think is your SAW 5.56 or 7.62?
Well, we can't, sometimes I just say like the terminology that I think I know without having looked in an actual book. So when someone says SAW to me, squad automatic weapon, that would say 5.56 to me. Now, if you look in a book, there might be different variants and all sorts of things. So if I was putting it in a novel, I would double check and triple check and quadruple check, but I was using the exact right terminology. But when someone says SAW, then that would be it. For me, that means 5.56.
Yeah, so we have like the same one as you guys on that. We have then the 7.62 variant 2, which we call them the Maximi, and then we have the FN, the mag, like the Mag 58, we call it. You guys call it something else. The 7.62 wooden stock, bloody big heavy fucking thing.
Oh, damn.
We carry that as well, which is just an animal, which is the best weapon in the fucking world. Like, I've seen those put like 9,000 rounds through them just on a fucking tripod. You're changing barrels every few hundred.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable weapon system. But, Kapuka, you start learning some of those, and then School of Infantry, which, you swing over. And at that time, man, in early 2015, the Army was going through a big change because the combat trips ended for Australia really in 2014. It was when Afghan started sort of cooling off for us. Anyway, they had like a mass exodus out of the Army, out of infantry at least, because people are like, well, I don't want to be like, the infantry, I'm here to shoot dudes. So the infantry went through a massive exodus of guys. So they were trying to like spool up the Army machine to get more troops in. So the problem they did was they actually overloaded the School of Infantry. So the School of Infantry can start a course of, I want to say, 50 men every 2 weeks, where Kapuka can do that every week. So I had to go into like waiting list. Like we got into the School of Infantry. They're like, yep, you're in this holding battalion until we can find your platoon to start.
Okay.
What was fucked, because you're at like a school, and everyone knows like military schools are hard. You're treated like shit, whatever. But I was there for like another like bonus fucking 7 weeks, like me and these dudes, and they were going fucking alphabetical. So I'm Williams, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. So we just did like PT for like 7 weeks, just getting thrashed because they couldn't actually do any training with us. Like we could do like basic stuff, but nothing, we couldn't go down to the Urban Warfare Center or whatever. But at least we got like super fit, because all we could do is PT twice a day. And ran PT, like, some PTI just smashing us. And then we got picked up into a platoon eventually, run by Royal Marine Commandos. So we've had Australian Army, all Commonwealth armies can like laterally transfer in between. So you can go Brits, Aussies, Canadians, whatever. It's a little bit more difficult than that, but it still can work. So the Brits, they have to retire after like 18 or 20 years or something like that. So the British, the Royal Marine Commandos, for some reason, when they retire, and if it's 20 years, you're only mid-30s, late 30s for a lot of dudes. So we just get all their sergeants coming over to ours. Next thing you're having some British bloke fucking yelling at you, and you're like, you know, you're an 18-year-old digger, some 40-year-old Royal Marine Commando who's just done Iraq and Afghan screaming at you in British, which is the official language of the military. Like every officer or every sergeant should have to be British. And you're just like, holy fuck, like climbing up a mount. But I've had heaps of Royal Marines, and they're fucking G's. So yeah, we had this guy who was like an ex-sergeant, an ex-sniper. He was fucking legit and ran us through the, I think it's 15 weeks training, I think, for infantry basic. I know it's changed now because the urban has got so much more. Like we might have done 2 weeks of urban, also, or even 10 days a week of urban, where now it's like a fucking month because they've realized how much more important that is. The army, every military man's a slow moving beast. Like to actually update something we're found on the ground through high command, through training command, there's probably shit from Vietnam still going through the fucking system to then be like, oh yeah, this is what we do in the jungle. Like, you know, all militaries are like that. It's, you know, if luckily they're not private companies, they'd be go fucking bust. But yeah, man, I really hold that dearly though. I remember a guy said to me, like Singleton, which is School of Infantry, is like the greatest time that you'll never want to live again. Like it was fucking great, but it's like, I'm not doing that shit again. But you know, a lot of them are still my best mates was from there.
And then you guys all go to your different units after that, and then do some sort of a workup before going to overseas.
Yeah. So we had, there's multiple units you can go. You can't, not every one of them is open to you just because of manning. So we could either go to Townsville, Darwin, or Adelaide. And I went down to Adelaide because I was like, fuck the heat. Like the last thing you want to do as a soldier is work in huge humidity and 110 degrees. Like Adelaide, where I'm from, is hot as fucking balls, but it's really dry because it's just a desert. I've
been to Adelaide, and I love Australia. I've absolutely love it. We actually went to, I want to say we were based out of Townsville. I might be wrong because it was in 2000, no, 99. Yeah, my first deployment, and that's where we go to work with the clearance dive team. And it was for some exercise, and I forget the name of it. I think it was probably like exercise, something crocodile, probably, because that's probably what it was. So we went over there, and I remember the day, either like right when we got there, or the day before, anyway, something like that. They pick up and off they go to East Timor. So we land, and we're there for this exercise. They leave. And everything's been paid for already. Our deployment is like we're scheduled to be there for a month, and so they're like, well, we don't know if they're coming back. I mean, looking back, obviously they're not going to just go for a day and come back on East Timor. But that's what we were like. Well, maybe they're coming back. We'll just wait for them. So we had a month in Australia with our rental cars and hotel rooms, and went down to the Gold Coast and did all that whole thing, and Surfers Paradise and all that. So we had a pretty good time out there. It was amazing. I love Australia. Beautiful.
Oh, it's good. It's fucking good fun, man. I still I'm a very passionate Aussie.
Nice.
It's fucking good to go. But went down Adelaide, man. That was the 7th Battalion. Which has actually just been announced that it's actually collapsing back into another like restructure. But and then basically, did some courses from there because it's like you're qualified as like the lowest of the low.
Okay.
Because we still have, I'm not sure if the Yanks have this, but you are still not a proficient private until a full year of serving in a battalion.
Okay.
So we're considered like a non-proficient private.
Non-proficient. That's what they actually call it?
They wouldn't call it that, but you don't become proficient until a year.
I see. Okay.
So they wouldn't say you're non-proficient, but then you become proficient. So you are.
Right. Got it.
So then a year
That's
in,
funny.
So within that year, you're basically just standing there on a gun. Like you're basically like, yep, okay, new bloke, you're carrying this gun and 800 rounds. that way.
Roger that.
Like it.
Yeah.
But then you have to do like qualifying shit. To, you have to show that you're actually proficient at navigation and all these other minor, like infantry minor tactics.
Yeah.
And then I managed doing that year, like then an advanced combat, advanced trauma course. And then I'm not sure if it was in that year or just after I did heavy weapons specialist, like anti-armor. So then went away for, I want to say 8 or 9 weeks and then did things like that. And there's all these other little bits and pieces that sort of, pull together that soldier structure from there. So the training is 6, 7, 8 months officially, but you're not a good soldier until I'd say like a good 18 months in. And I've been saying this to people about like, say Ukraine. I'm like, it's great we're taking these guys out and we're giving them a few months of training, but don't expect the fucking SAS. Don't expect Delta Force out of this. Like in 2 months, how much can you actually give someone? Like even just physically, not that much. It's the basic of it. And I was 18 months, 2 years in the battalion, and then tours came back around. And 7th Battalion, which is my unit, was it was the most deployed battalion in the regular army, outside of the SF units. Yeah. And we were lucky; we picked up just by luck 4 tours in a year. We picked up a Malaysia trip, which wasn't really a tour, and then an Iraq and 2 Afghans. Oh wow. Mainly because our sister battalion had all these like DUIs, like driving under the influence and shit. And some big head honcho in the army somewhere went, fuck it, give them all to 7.
Oh my gosh.
So we went like online, had to go through months of like Middle Eastern rehearsals. I think we called it something like that. And we had to like spool up into specific training for that mission, because we always say we're training for the war, not a war. The war, the army and the Americans, the Aussies, the Brits, we're training for the war with China, the war with Russia. That's the war. A war is Afghans going on. That's because it's like, well, there's a war going on, but it's dudes in sandals and we've got choppers and F-18s. Like, fuck yeah. But we train as if we're going to fight a near peer partner, where once we pick up the trips and we start actually doing those rehearsals, it's right, we need to like change the training away from fighting a near peer to then we're fighting what we're actually going to be up against. So a whole different slew, even different tactics, things like this. So we went on to that heap of courses, heap of rehearsals as if we're living out of a fob, little bits and pieces, man. So it was a pretty wild like uptick, like pretty quick.
What's your MOS, or what we'd call an MOS, your specialty? What do you do you have that?
Yeah, heavy weapons anti-armor.
Nice.
Was my specialty, and it was going through a little bit of a change at the time. Like we were going away from more the direct fire support. 50 cal Mark 19 AGL, although we're now across to the new one, but I'm not current on that. 84 mil Javelin and things like that. But now we've shifted sort of after I've left more to the anti-armor role, like the stalking role of tanks. So the guys now, like the boys over there, they're in like full ghillie suits, man, with an 84 mil Carl Gustav stalking tanks. Like it's like snipers with javelins or Carl Gustav.
Yeah. That'll work.
And that has been that's actually like we've saw that tick up in, I want to say 2020, maybe 2019. And then that's just been confirmed of how deadly something like that is in Ukraine, because you get 2 dudes out there, man, with 4 84 mil Carl Gustavs and a tube, 2 of them in ghillie suits, and you're up against a bloody, some 4 tanks. You're deadly as fuck to those tanks. So it's more that role now, and it's like less of the fire support. But it's still interesting, man. I think for qualifications, like on just getting hands on weapon systems, like heavy weapons, that's where you want to be. Firing 50 cals, firing automatic grenade launchers, just random piss like that. Fucking sick.
Oh man, I was on an Australian ship in I forget what year, probably 99, 2000, somewhere in there, before September 11th, I think. No, maybe after, regardless. Anyway, sometime 20 plus years ago. And there was such a stark difference between the Australian ship and the U.S. ship. And it was an amphib, so it was an old United States amphib that I guess we had sold and then maybe refurbished or something. And I'll tell you what, it was awesome to be on that Australian ship. And we were there, it was after September 11th, because we were in shipboardings in the Northern Arabian Gulf, and like wine in the galley. That was one thing. And then helicopters coming on board or ships coming alongside to bring on food and supplies. And they'd announce like, hey, we need help up in the, on whatever that deck's called. And everybody would go. And everybody was helping, and everybody was like having a good time. And then cricket in the high bay area, whatever it's called. And it was such a stark difference from the limited amount of time. Now, these are both very limited experiences, obviously, touch points. But it stood out in my mind, very different than a U.S. ship where it seemed like everybody was just like bummed, super bummed to be there. And if you were going to go and if you had to do a duty like that, you'd be assigned to it. You'd be told that you have to go do this. It wasn't like, hey, we need some help. And everybody runs up having a great time, unloading food and doing all this. And then, hey, let's play some cricket afterward. And this, I mean, it was noticeable. It stands out all these years later. I haven't thought of it in years, but just hearing you, talk about your experience, that really did stick out in my mind. The morale of the sailors on that Australian amphib ship compared to my limited experience on U.S. ship, stark difference. Maybe it was the wine, but I don't think so. I think it was more just, I don't know, maybe that Australian spirit or something. I don't know what it was, but it's, you could feel it. No doubt about it.
But that's been famous, man, since like World War One. Many like American generals are right about like the spirit of the Aussies. We call it the spirit of the Anzac, like the Australian New Zealand Army Corps. And it's just, and people will imagine Aussies like that too. That if you meet an Australian like in the States or somewhere, it's like, oh, that guy's drinking beer, he's happy, he's carrying on, and it's the same here. It's like a country full of it. That is like the Australian spirit. Is that like friendly, go out of your way for someone else. That sort of is it. And I think Australia, a lot of it has lost its way in that, but it's so prevalent in the armed forces because you get the extremes. Like you get the, say America, like a lot of the Marines and stuff I've worked with, you get the extremes of America and you get then the extremes of Australia. And the army, man, you'll get the furthest left and right of arc of personalities. Yeah. And that you're attracted, that the guys attracted are like that. You get a lot of these like guys who are off farms who have never fucking seen like another human. Like, I've mates who are off, 2 million acre farms in the middle of the fucking outback where it's a 600-mile drive to their letterbox sort of thing. Yeah. And they've just been shooting pigs with a 22. You're like, where the fuck did they find this dude? Great. And he's just loose as fuck, but like the biggest Aussie ever. Like, basically out there as a bushranger.
So great. So great. I gotta get back to Australia. I want to bring the family back at some point and get down there and travel around. Jimmy Spithill's a friend, and he's one of the greatest sailors in the world, America's Cup sailor, and just an awesome guy. We've done some things together, and just such a solid dude. But I need to get down to Australia here with the family. I think at some point. It's just such a beautiful spot.
It is. It's just such a fucking haul here, man. Like I've done it 4 times this year, States and back. Dang. And it's like thank God I can fly direct Sydney Dallas or Melbourne Dallas, but wow. Oh man, that it's a 17-hour 20 flight, the middle flight. So I have to fly like where I am from to Melbourne or Sydney. It's an hour or two, and then whatever layover, then 17 hours 20 solid, and it's just direct. And I'm like, right. It's it's a once a couple of year thing.
Yeah, it can be brutal. Depending on how you're flying, it can be really brutal. But
I'm not a best-selling journalist, like an author, mate. I'm sitting back like this.
Oh man, yeah, that can be rough. Oh my gosh, so when you finish your advanced training and you get to your unit and you do your training with them, then do you do those trips? Do you do Malaysia? Do you do the Iraq and Afghanistan, or what? Do you do all those, or what's your path from there?
No, so trips are pretty lucky actually for us. Like normally, it sort of rotates every 3 years through tours coming up for the unit. Now I'll get the specifics of this wrong, but the meat of it's fine. Yeah. We had like four companies in our battalion. and 3 including like specialist, like support company. So support got collapsed into the other 3 companies. So it got collapsed like across. And then 1 company did Malaysia, 1 did Iraq, and 1 did Afghan.
Okay. And so you're on the
and then
Afghan.
I got the Afghan one, which was by far the best one at the time. And then they had to really, once like I was on the second Afghan trip, they needed to like re-spool up some dudes to make a first trip as well. So we did 2 Afghan trips, and that's a lot, man. Like anyone that knows infantry battalions, to man like 4 tours, 2 being, 3 being, fairly high risk tours. That's a lot to ask in a 12-month period of any fucking unit anywhere in the world. Like that's a lot, where you're doing different missions and whatever. So that period, that 2016-ish period for us was just wild. Like that much shit happening, man. Like never on rest. It was just like you're doing this course, you're going here, going there, run up this fucking hill, typical infantry work, nothing. The infantry is not glamorous, but it's the lack of glamour which is beautiful. Like it's, it's not these SF boys, getting out of choppers and doing. It's like, it's just a fucking grind. It's just like, that machine gun just needs to go there. It doesn't matter how it happens, just fucking push it. Oh fuck. But spooled up with those tours, and then we all deployed at different times. And it was weird because my trip was 8 months and 2 weeks, I want to say, so a long trip. I know the Yanks do some a lot longer, but there was guys I hadn't seen for like 2 years, man, because the trip before us was say 6 or 7 months, and then we came in to do like a handover, takeover, like a hoto with them. But of course, you only see the dudes you're really handing over with, like your area, your camp. And we did our trip, came back, and I'm like, I've seen some dudes in like fucking 2 years. And the unit was basically empty at that time. Like, you've got a few tens of guys, maybe 100 back there at any one point. So it was actually good at like the end of end of 17 to have like all the troops back at the unit for the first time in years, which was fucking really special, man, for a bit, because, you love your unit. You really do. You're up at the boozer, whatever, taking the piss, smashing beers, drinking out of 50 cal barrels and shit. Like, we had a javelin beer bong at one point, like just random piss. But it was fucking good. And the Marines we worked with, I don't even know how this happened, but like, what a shoey is, like the Aussie thing you drink out of your boot.
Okay, yeah.
Seen that? Like the Formula One driver Ricardo, he made it famous. He got on the podium, tipped his like champagne in his shoe and drinks. That's like a very Australian thing. Okay. These Yanks gave us a boot from like Vietnam as like it was like meant to be like put on the shelf somewhere as like, this was from the 1st Marines, whatever battalion. And whoever they gifted it to at the boozer just poured a beer in it, and it like, that's fucking gross. Like that's like a 60-year-old boot now.
Wow.
Shit like that. Like, it's every Thursday boozer, but oh man, it's the battalions are really fucking fun.
Oh man, what stands out to you about your time in Afghanistan when you think back on it, or during your time there, a lesson, or what when you think about it, what stands out to you about those 8 months and 2 weeks that you did over there?
Man, to be honest, and this is going to sound really cringe, but it's my age of how fucking young I was. Like I look back now and I'm like, holy fuck, that's a lot of responsibility on a fucking 20-year-old. Like I basically don't trust myself with the microwave at the moment, and I'm like, holy shit! Like I was 20,
and some guys were 18, having their 18th birthdays.
I know. And I was a crew commander of a Bushmaster, like armored vehicle. So just before the trip went, there was a restructure of how the trip was actually working, because typically we had transport drivers drive the vehicles, like our armored vehicles, and we had like the infantrymen doing the work out of the vehicle. And there was this really bad clash where we wanted the commanders of the vehicle, like the guy on the gun and navigating, we wanted them to be infantrymen. But there was this lack of like training and this sort of rift between the core of drivers and the infantry. Like the infantry get along with fucking no one. So I got called up, man, like literally just before I meant to go. And it's like, Willy, you've got to be here onto this course, to learn like this vehicle system, whatever. and then learn all the fucking subsidiary systems for that vehicle. The Blue Force tracker, the weapon station on, because we had a few flat tops with the gun, but most was the weapon station. Like you're sitting in the car with like the thermal camera gun joystick fucking thing. And all this other shit, different radios, everything. So I had to become like a crew commander of a vehicle like fucking quick. Typically, crew commanders are meant to be like full track corporals who had done this shit. I had fucking no idea, man. And I've driven this thing like twice. Luckily, I wasn't driving it. I was commanding it. And next thing, it's like, yeah, Willy, you're going to be, he's like, well, my sergeant who was in charge, like I trust your tactics probably the most out of some of these guys. So I want you to lead this convoy, and I want you to, you're up front doing, and I'm at the time like, yeah, whatever. I guess it's just like blinded young man's arrogance. But now I look back and I'm like, I was fucking 20, handed a map of a city and like drive us there. Yeah. Like holy, like that was a lot. And then I think about that, like that I would have grown like exponentially in that time. And I'm so stoked on that, because it's like, yeah, I was able to actually like grow significantly sort of out of my body as a 20-year-old when I was working at a job that holds a lot more responsibility than, just your average guy sitting in the back of the vehicle. I saw a lot more, because most guys are just sitting in the back of the vehicle, just fucking, when are we getting there? Where I was lucky to actually, be involved in the movements and whatever as well. You've got your hand on the gun turret, you're doing, you're mapping, you get a better feeling of actually where you are. You sort of get to know the city, because we're working mainly in Kabul, or just out of Kabul. So, yeah, and planning, like, my sergeant was like, Willy, I want you to plan the route to get to, camp, whatever. We're going to go see, we're going to go to this base. We did some shit like, it was nothing special, but we're going out here to go to this like Green Berets base to do this or do that. Right. Let's fuck you just plan it. And that shit, man, as a 20-year-old, I was like, holy fuck. Like, and I look back on that now and I'm like, yeah, I was just young. And there was, weird dudes celebrating 18th birthdays and shit. But I miss it, man. Like, if you said to do it again, I would, because you've got like all the bullshit of life doesn't exist there. Like, you're young, which helps a lot. But it's not like you've got a rent to pay, because all your stuff goes back into storage at home. Or your rent gets like somewhat covered. You don't have I had like no external stress at all. I was just living the life, just day in, day out. You're fully involved in something. And I think I've heard Andy Stump talk about this, where he's like, not many people are just fully, every bit of your being is involved in one thing. Like, that's it for a period of time. And that's really nice. Where like you and I, you do this and you write and I do my YouTube and whatever. But we've got all this external shit, which takes up 50% of our fucking brain power. It's just paying the registration on our vehicle, making sure there's food in there, like piss like that. It just takes up so much of your life, where that is all gone on those tours. And even if there's like hard times, it's like you're always with your boys, it's always together. And then you come back and it just like everyone just dissipates. Now I think it would have changed a lot if we lost a guy on the tour. We didn't lose any. Thank God. But I think that would have probably changed a lot for us, but that didn't happen. But what did happen, and this is a bloody lesson for young men, is we lost, was it 2 or 3? I'm trying to think back now. I think it was 3. We lost 3 guys within 2 months on fucking motorbikes when they got home. Because the Australians get paid really well when we deploy. We go tax-free, and then we get like a danger pay, and our normal pay is pretty good. So a private soldier in the Australian Army will earn about $5,000 a fortnight Australian, so $3,600 US a fortnight tax-free while in country, which is pretty fucking good if you're 18, 19. Like, that is good money. Anyway, young 18, 19, 20-year-old guys, they get back and I'm buying this 1,000cc fucking Yamaha R1. And within 2 months, we lost no one for a 9-month tour, or 8 months and a bit tour. And as soon as we get home, multiple guys killed on super sport bikes. And you're like, that's the danger in this, isn't it? It's it's just part of it, man.
It's so tough. What was your mission when you went over there? And was it the same mission you thought it was going to be when you got your briefings before you left? And then when you put boots on the ground in country, did it shift, or did you have one specific mission the whole time? Were you aware of a commander's intent and a mission for these 8 months, or for, hey, the first 4 months and then it's going to shift? Yeah. And was that articulated to you guys?
I don't know if there was a true commander's intent for the fucking 20 years we're in Afghan. What was our actual fucking intent there? Right. Like, you know, it seemed like sometimes we had intent and it's like we're switching missions to this. So our mission was a train, advise, assist mission. So, you know, I don't have any cool fucking, you know, shooter fucking stories, you know, I don't have that shit. Which, you know, 99% of guys who went to Afghan do not have that shit. And 0.5% of the other guys are making it up. And then there's the real fucking hitters too. It's like, and not to take the piss out of them, but like, look back at post-wars. You're like, hang on, why was everyone who served in those wars now, like I was in the SAS? Like, not all of you fucking were. Like, not everyone who went to Vietnam was in the SAS. Like, hang on.
Yeah. And I heard a Vietnam vet tell me, SF guy tell me, gosh, 30 years ago, 25 at least. He's like, I've never met another Vietnam vet who wasn't SF. Or somebody who did, you know, and then I've heard the same thing about, same thing. I've never met an Israeli in the United States who wasn't Mossad or part of some secret unit over there. It's a very similar type of a deal. Yeah.
So the older I get, if you interview me again in 20 years, you know, I'll probably be here, Sandy Beret on.
I won't rewatch this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a train, advise, assist mission, which basically what we're to do is provide protection for, like the VIPs coming into Afghan National Army bases to either do like engineering work, like building shit up, or the training of like officers. So we would have high-ranking officers come in from the States, Australia, wherever. We worked with a lot of the Dutch as well. A lot of everyone, actually. We're actually under British command while I was there, under the first Irish and then the Yorks or something. Anyway, we basically provide like armored movements for these VIPs on where they wanted to go, what they wanted to view. So if they wanted to view the Afghan Air Force dropping bombs, you know, we would have an element take them out there to witness them in their little fucking things dropping bombs, or all the way through to, they're learning to leopard crawl. Today, we want to go fucking see it. Or, you know, engineers, or we're going to build a new school building here. Yeah. So we're going to do this. So we would provide like the security on the ground for them, as well as armored movements, and then random bits and pieces like, you know, fucking camp security. And we did a fair bit, like I did a fair bit of just armored, like shuttle movements. So, you know, this needs to be delivered from here to there, like this bit of crypto equipment needs to be moved from base to base through whatever zone. So you can't take an up armored vehicle. You actually need a proper armored vehicle, not just a Land Cruiser with a fucking heavy windshield on it. So move that. So yeah, nothing glamorous, man, but I got a lot out of it. Like I got a lot out of that tour. Like I think a lot of infantrymen like myself, you know, we want that kicking indoor, shooting out missions, but you speak to guys who did that, like you know, at that point you're really putting yourself up to a lot of risk. All your mates are going to be at risk. You're probably going to lose dudes. So it's a lot. Like that's what we wanted. That's what some of us were more expecting, but where we actually got was a fair bit under that. But at the time, it was the best thing going. Like even like, you know, at the time, that's what everyone's all the Americans are doing the same fucking thing. You can't look at what the Green Berets are doing or the SEALs or that has no bearing on what we're fucking doing. You know, at one point when the hospital got blown up in Kabul in 2017, which was like horrible bloody thing, because I saw that go off. Like I'm sitting in the vehicle, man, on a helicopter landing. We had to just go clear a landing zone for some British Pumas. And me and Courtney, the driver, we're just sitting in there like fucking eating snacks or whatever, listening to like, you had to listen to a Meatloaf song every time we drove out the gate. So we're listening to like Paradise by the Dashboard Light, then just this massive fucking bang. And next thing, like every vehicle fucking come back in, like collapse everything.
Yeah.
And we were meant to be quick reaction force that. So we took up a QRF as well. So a 5-minute quick reaction force to anything in the city. But it was basically turned off because it was like, look, there's no Westerners involved in this. Like they're not involved. We're not going, which I guess is a fair enough thing. You know, we're not going to quick reaction to if there's not guys in contact. next thing we're seeing fucking SBS on the PT. It's like the SBS putting ladders through windows, and we're like, "Come, this sucks." Like, come on.
Going to get some.
Navy Federal Credit Union. I've been a member of Navy Federal Credit Union since 1996 and have only had incredible experiences. Getting a new car is exciting, and you deserve a hassle-free buying experience. You can get a decision in seconds and enjoy great rates. With everything you need in one place, Navy Federal's Car Buying Center is your one-stop shop for researching, financing, buying, protecting, and enjoying your next car. You could search for new and used cars, access vehicle history reports, enjoy discounts on auto insurance, and more. And you can make the most of your time on the road wherever you go with our flagship credit card. Whether you're taking a trip to relax or see somewhere new, you deserve a travel card that does the work for you. The flagship credit card will earn you 3 times points on travel, plus up to $100 in statement credits towards TSA PreCheck or global entry, and a free year of Amazon Prime. With 2 times the points and all purchases outside of travel, the rewards don't have to end when your vacation does. For more on Navy Federal's car buying experience and flagship rewards, visit NavyFederal.org. Open to the armed forces, the DoD, veterans, and their families. Credit and collateral subject to approval. Navy Federal is insured by NCUA. Visa is a registered service mark of Visa used by Navy Federal under license. NavyFederalCreditUnion.org.
Then, were you guys like, oh, this is awesome. Hey, we're here. This is what we trained for. We might get our chance to do something. Or were you like, what are we doing here? Were you thinking like strategically, or were you thinking just tactically?
I think a lot of the infantry, like a lot of like the private soldier who were just doing that, like security, they were like that. They're like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, come on, we're looking after this lieutenant colonel doing fucking whatever, having a fucking cup of tea with some other commander. Like, fuck off. And there's a lot of that. A colonel will be like, oh, I just want to go see the view from the top of this fucking hill, and it'll take us a day of planning and a day of work to actually get it. All he sees, he gets to the back of the vehicle, drives up there and walks out the door, and, oh, look at this, where we've been doing all this fucking shit behind the scenes. So I think a lot of guys had that feeling of like, what the fuck are we doing here? Where I'll say I was fucking very blessed being a commander of a vehicle. I had a lot more on because I was actually planning routes. I was actually looking at the danger. I wasn't just sitting in the back of the vehicle trying to get some sleep. But there was definitely points like that where, can we just go and fucking shoot someone? Like, and I even know my sergeant, he'd done, I want to say 7 or 8 trips by then, mostly the combat era. And he was like, right, we're going to go down this road. And I'm not meant to get, he's like, we're going down this road. Like, he just wanted some shit to happen. But man, it was the best thing going. You talk to the Yanks and the MRAPs, whatever, and it was like, we're doing the same piss. So whether it's lucky, not lucky, like I got a tour, like, that's part of it. And I'm happy about that. Like, the warfighter shit, not that much, but it's I still look at it very, very fondly.
Yeah. Did you guys have an alcohol allotment, or did you guys have General Order Number 1, I think, as we call it in the United States military, which is no drinking, no gambling, and a couple of other things.
We were pure dry.
Oh, trip. Really? Okay. Interesting. Because in the early days you were not, if memory serves. Yeah. Maybe it was the Italians. Sometimes things blend a little bit. It's been a little while, so maybe it was the Italians, but I thought it was you. Anyway, regardless.
The Aussie SF, they've never been like dry. Like the SF boys are not, they're not dry. Probably the early trips weren't. But the thing is, you deploy late in a war like that, like it's, they manage to screw down everything. Like in the beginning, it's, fucking whatever goes. And then they sort of really tighten the screws on things. And we were a bit too late in the war for the really loose shit like that. But, no grog. But that's why, because we get a 2-week relief out of country during our tour.
That's wild. We tried that a couple of times, I think, in special operations. I think maybe regular or conventional units might have had that. They were there for like a year plus. Some guys 14 months. So I think they had it, and then I think we started to maybe do it, but it was just, I don't think for very long. I never did it, but I don't think it really worked out for us.
Oh man,
it's kind of a strange thing. Oh really? Where'd you go?
It was the fucking awesome, bro. Because
you go to Thailand or something? Where'd you go?
So they'd bring us back to Dubai, where we had like a staging area in the UAE. And they'll either return us back home on a flight, like they could either shuttle us back home on a chartered flight,
Yeah.
or they'll give you the equivalent money of a return flight to Italy. So we just took the, I don't know what it was, $1,600, whatever it would be. And me and one of the boys we went to Italy, and then we went through the Greek islands, and like we were fucking, because we're 20 or maybe 21 because I had a birthday there. We're 20-year-old dudes. We're earning $5,000 a fortnight. We're fucking shredded because all you can do is the gym, and we're in the Greek islands, and we're just dickheads. Like, we've got infantry attitude, man. Like, we'd call it like Afghanitude, because you've got like this like Afghanistan like big bulletproof looking attitude. And we've been tanning, like we're like tan ops every afternoon. Like, after whatever's done, we're just trying to tan up so we can go to fucking Greece. We did awesome. Italy, Greece, and that was epic. Cool. And then we did France at the end, and actually did Anzac Day is like Memorial Day in the States, but it's actually, because I was there for Memorial Day this year. And it was actually a lot of July. Is it Memorial Day, July the 4th? 4th of July?
No.
Or is that?
No.
Which one's that?
May for Memorial Day, and then 4th of July, Independence Day.
Or maybe I was there for May as well, because I've been in the States all year.
Okay.
But it was so much less official than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Like, we have all this like official shit still. You're up at 5 a.m. Everyone's at a dawn service to emulate, the landings on the beaches in Gallipoli, all this stuff.
Wow.
And we actually ended up in France, in Villers-Bretonneux, where Australia is. In Villers-Bretonneux in France, the Australian flag still flies higher than the French flag in the town, because we basically saved the town from the Germans. Like, we had this massive last stand. Hundreds and hundreds of Aussies died. Like, it was fucking unbelievable, the story that's happened in Villas. Australians still get beers. Like, if you walk into Villas and you're Australian, it's like you're a fucking superhero. Like, I was driving through this little French town, man, and I'm seeing kangaroos painted on walls at the school and Australian flags. And what the fuck is going on here?
Wow.
And it's still very held, like, in regard there.
Yeah.
And we ended up there for Anzac Day.
That's cool.
And it was fucking epic. Like, we ended up there drinking beers with all these other veterans and shit who were there. And that was really special, man. To be there at dawn service, it's 4:45, 5 a.m. It's cold as fuck, but that simulates like when that was all happening. The boys, it doesn't simulate, of course, but like, that you get somewhat of the feeling of the boys in the trenches at the time. You can still see the trenches dug in there. I don't know if you've been through France, but it's unbelievable, man. Like, I was there again late last year. I ended up in France and went through some of the war areas down Normandy way. Went Dunkirk through to Normandy, some of the American stuff, whatever. And it's unbelievable. You can still see where like craters of shells have hit, where trenches are dug. You're like, holy shit. There's still areas which you can't go in there because of the fucking landmines.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that was very fucking special.
Yeah, I was there for D-Day commemoration events, not this last June, but the June before, with the Best Defense Foundation. Took my daughter, and she was still in high school at the time, and we got assigned to a veteran, taking these World War II veterans back. So she's standing there on the beach in Normandy with someone who was the first guy out of his landing craft, and now he's late 90s, and he's telling her this story. And I have pictures of it, and it's a really special. And I could not believe it. I'd heard some stories, but I'd been to Normandy twice before, but never in June, never early June. Yeah. And it was about 8 days we were there, I think. But it was, American flags everywhere, 101st Airborne flags everywhere, 82nd Airborne flags everywhere, all these military jeeps and troop transports and uniforms, period specific. And it was just incredible to see this outpouring of support for these World War II veterans. We went to a school, and gosh, it must have been kindergarten through, let's say, 8th grade. And American flag, every single person waving American flags. And it was just so special to see that. I saw more American flags in Normandy in early June than I've ever seen in the United States on Memorial Day, Veterans Day, 4th of July. It is, I encourage every American specifically to go to Normandy in early June and be there for those events, and do it now while there are still some World War II veterans alive. Yeah. So the 80th anniversary commemoration events are coming up this next June. So I'm planning to be there, but it's incredible.
Yeah. the Black Rifle boys, they jumped out of the plane.
They jumped out. They static lined out, and that was one thing that I wish I had done in the military, because we sent guys there every June we used to have a unit in Germany, which was really like a logistics hub for naval special warfare for the SEAL teams, and they would send some people to jump to static line in as part of those commemoration events every year, and man, that's one thing I wish I'd done while I was in the military, but. But it's so special to be there with these guys in their late 90s, and just some of them hadn't been back since then. One guy didn't have a passport, had never left the country again, and we had to pull strings. Best Defense Foundation, Donnie Edwards, had to figure out how to get him a passport, and incredible. I mean, it's a special place to be, and they remember, and they don't just remember, they passed it on. So now they passed it on to their kids and grandkids over there. So it's because these kids are 5 years old waving flags, 6 years old, 7 years old waving flags, and it's amazing. It's really special.
I will say that, man, like France does, for all the problems the French have, the French out there, like the small town French, this is with everything, is if you see a country for the capital city, it's not like, fucking America is not LA, Australia is not Melbourne, France isn't fucking Paris. The French do a fucking amazing job at those World War I, World War II areas. They do such a fucking good job, man. From Dunkirk down to like Flanders Fields, Normandy, that is unbelievable. From World War I and II, how they like preserve all of that. It's fucking fantastic, and they're still finding shit, man. Like I went to a thing that was only say 5 years old. They found like a mass grave, and they were like, "Oh, look, there was a Australian like medical facility here, and then there was basically like a fucking mass grave out the back. Like because you're mass cas the entire time, like for years you're mass casualties. And we found all these bodies, and it's like a new, right in the center of the town. They made like a new cemetery. It's only like 5 years old. It's like, oh, what the fuck? And they do such a good job of it, man. Like for the Aussies, the Yanks, everyone, it's great.
Yeah, that's incredible. So what was it like to go back to Afghanistan then, after having this trip through the Greek islands and Italy and France, and what is it like to go back then to time to take the colonel up to the hill again?
Bro, I remember sitting in the airport like fucking wrecked, because what we did, like, and this, everyone thinks I'm a piss wreck, but like for like 14 days, me and Griffo, my mate, we just sunk piss, man, for like 14 days. And we're sitting in.
Let me translate for those listening or watching that aren't from Australia. So that means you're drinking a lot.
Beers.
Yeah.
Anyway, and the thing is, we hadn't seen another fucking female for months. So we're drinking beers, trying to meet girls, all this shit, and we know we're not going to meet another girl for another 6 months or drink a beer, whatever. So it's like, get it all in while we can. Anyway, we're sitting in like Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, just like. The MPs wouldn't find us. Like if we just went AWOL, like they'd fucking give up. Like what are they going to do? They look for like a week. They're going to be like, fuck this.
Yeah.
He's going to be in Ibiza somewhere. And we like legitimately, and I think everyone who did these considered just AWOL. But yeah, we got back in. Yeah. Typical shit. CSM come down and drug test everyone and all this shit. And back in, but it was a decent like breakup of the tour, but it was coming back. You're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, back at it. Oh man. So you finish up your tour, get home, and then what point does the cancer diagnosis come into play? When do you start feeling like, what's that story?
So I came back. So we deployed in Jan to September, I think, and then we were meant to have like 4 weeks off mandatory. That ended up getting cut short for me because it's like we want you on the name's changed now, but it's a corporal's course, subject 2 for corporal. So you can actually do corporal's course before Lance Corporal's course. You just can do it. So it's like, hey, we need you back. You're doing this promotional course, whatever. Come back. So that was fucking hectic as well. Get that done. I'm not sure how long it is, but a couple of months. Say maybe it's 8 weeks. I'm not sure. Do that course sort of. So a whole year of just being away. And then I travel again over that New Year's period. I did like 5 weeks of traveling there, went to Finland, whatever. That was fucking wild. It was awesome. Like Scandinavia, fucking the best. Anyway, come back and like I've just got this like piercing headache that I cannot fucking get rid of. And in February in the army, Feb 18 is where codeine became like an become like a prescription drug. So I was taking codeine to get my headache on. And then it's like, well, you'll go, if you get drug tested, you'll go hot for that. Huh. So basically it was like, fuck this. Saw my section commander on like a Friday morning. And I was like, man, I just can't pack march today. Like, I just can't fucking do it. Like, my head's killing me. And basically it's like, well, Willy, I know you. Like, I've seen some of the states you've rocked up from uni night, Thursday night from the pub and still pack march on a Friday. Like, if you're not pack marching, you've got to be in a fucking state. Like, you're hurting. And he's like, Monday morning, you need to go to the fucking aid post, get it looked at, whatever. So pretty shit weekend, like headache, cancelled because I was skydiving at the time. So I cancelled my jumps, all this shit. Monday morning, in the doctor, and it's basically like, oh, Willy, like, yeah, man, like, because you're in the army, it's really easy for us to get you like a scan on your head. So I go away, get a scan, and I'm like, that's fucking overkill. I just wanted some drugs, man. Anyway, fucking went in, got like a CT scan, and I was driving home, probably going the long way to avoid going back to work quickly, as any good soldier does. Stop by for a 4-hour lunch at fucking Subway. But, and then, yeah, the imaging specialist rang me and was like, hey, Mr. Williams, I can't get in touch with your doctor, but you need to come back because we need to do another scan. And I'm just like, what the fuck? And because they're not a doctor, like they're not your doctor. They cannot tell you shit. So I basically had to turn around, and the next thing I was put in like an MRI tube. And I was like, this is just such fucking, because if you don't think that that's going to be the first thing. You don't just think, fucking brain tumor is killing you. You don't think that at all. So yeah, and then next thing I'm in this, get back to the doctor, and he's like, yeah, look, they've found whatever mass in your head that's I think it was 47 millimeters at the time. So what's that? A 2-inch thing in your head, like that's large. That's pretty fucking big. Like it's 36 mil by 30 or 47 or whatever it is, which in non-freedom units, but in commie units, but it's a large mass in your head. And then it's like, yeah, you need this emergency appointment with a neurosurgeon. And at the time, I'm just like, what the fuck is, like, this is such overkill. Like, I'm just like, this is bullshit. Get in with the neuro, and he's like, yeah, look, I need you in a biopsy, like tomorrow. I need you on the fucking in surgery. Because I think it's going to be this, and we'll go and try whatever, like this glioma. So get in, and I'd never been in surgery before, and it's pretty, it's not, it's not just getting, it's a pretty major operation. It's brain surgery. They're cutting through your skull. So into surgery, biopsy. I wake up out of surgery thinking, oh, they're going to tell me the results like now, like, because, we send it off to pathology. Thinking like it's a blood test. A couple of hours, I'll get results. No, it's like, oh no, we'll know in fucking 6 weeks.
6
and I'm like,
weeks.
What? Like, what the fuck? And I often say to people, because I talk to a lot of people like mental health issues, but privately and publicly and whatever, that hanging in limbo is way fucking worse than knowing bad news. Like that limbo period, because it could have brain tumors go, like the left and right of arc of brain tumors is fucking mental. Like, it could be, oh, you're dying tomorrow, through to you're going to last a couple of years or 10 years. It's pretty wide variety. Pick your own fun trip. But, and I didn't know that. I was like, holy fuck. Like, I didn't know it was going to be this fucking long. And I'm just in limbo, which was just shocking, man. And then on the fucking day, I was meant to go see my neurosurgeon. He's like, oh no, we forgot to do one of the tests. And I'm in the car driving there. It's like, it's going to be another like 10 days. And I'm just lighting this dude up, man. Like, I'm in the car, like full section commander mode.
Like they forgot to order one of the tests. They didn't forget to like do something while they were in your head.
Yeah, just forgot to order it. Like they just had to send some of the cells back in. But at the time, I didn't give a fuck. I'd been going through fucking hell, man. Like, so I was just lighting this dude up. I think fucking rightfully so. So yeah, eventually, got the results. Whatever, the results weren't shocking, but not great. So it's definitely not as bad as it could be. But like, this will kill you in a few years. So. And the thing is with these tumors, man, it's like the amount they can actually do is so fucking slim. Like, they're like, we're not prepared to operate on you. It's too dangerous. because it controls my right motor strip. And they're like, look, you're going to have some neurological deficit if we do that. And it's mixed in with cells like this. Like, it's just a complete mash of cells. So I had one explain to me, it's a little bit like, at least in that region, if you've got like a syringe full of like, red liquid and put it into an orange and try and cut that liquid out. Like that's, that diffusion is very hard.
Wow.
To cut at the cellular level. Like, we can't do that. They can't believe I don't have a deficit. They're like, no, all 3 neurosurgeons on board with me. They cannot believe I don't have a deficit in my body. They're like, your tumor has literally taken up part of your like fucking operating system in your brain. Like, we don't know how your right hand, leg, we don't know how that's working. So I've actually gone away and done, luckily, I think there's 2 machines in the Southern Hemisphere for functional MRI, whatever level of functional MRI this is. And one of them is in my fucking city. Thank God. And they actually contacted me. Look, this is nothing to do with your case, but are you willing to come in and do some like shit for like medical research? And I'm like, fucking whatever. Just because it's very uncommon in my age, my health, whatever, to actually have all of this, as well as having no deficit. So then the doctors, they literally make, what do you want to do? You can either do radiotherapy or chemotherapy or nothing. Like, what? And I remember being in there like, what the fuck are you telling me? Like, I'm a lot more chilled out now than I used to be. But I mean, like, what are you asking me for? I didn't go to med school for fucking 15 years to be a neurosurgeon. Like, you tell me what I'm doing. That's like, I'm fucking whatever. And then there was like a big fucking fight between, because you have like a team when these big things happen, you have like 2 neurosurgeons on board, an oncologist, a radiologist, all these fucking people who, and of course they look at it from their own aspect. And I always use this in like army terms or military terms, that like, if you're doing a mission, so you're hitting this area, the SEALs will do it differently to the Berets, and the Deltas will do it differently to the SA. Everyone has their own way of looking at it because they see what their the way they would do it, what their specialty is. They might insert a different way, do whatever. So of course an oncologist thinks that chemical influence is the best way of doing it through chemo, whatever. The others might think radiotherapy is the best. Other surgeons will want to do, and the thing is, it's that too many chiefs rule. You're like, well, one of you take fucking control and be like, this is the best outcome. And thank fuck, and I know people always talk about AI, but that's actually what will come through is eventually. And I actually supported monetarily a guy doing this, a very high end surgeon, who's basically building a database of all these people like worldwide who have had illnesses like this. And you'll plug in, Private Smith or like James Smith has this, right? Put it in, and then it will tell you, right, we've run this against 1 million people who have had this illness. The best possible outcome was we did surgery, radio, chemo in that order, or whatever. Wow. So that's very interesting on that front. Yeah. But at my end, it was like, oh, what do you want to do? And I'm like, what the fuck? So I was meant to start radiotherapy on Monday, and then my surgeon found out on Friday afternoon and rang me like hysterical. He's like, what the fuck is that happening for? That's cancelled. Like, you cannot do that because you can only do radio once. He's like, we can't do that. So then you're starting chemotherapy on Monday, and then the oncologist is ringing me, cracking the, like, man, it was just fucked. Man. Like, it was a complete fucking shit fight. And it's not the fault of anyone. Like, these people are very, very proficient people. Like, the whole idea that these guys don't know what they're doing is bullshit. They know what they're doing. It's just so uncommon in someone my age, this particular type of tumor. Like, all this was very like, it's so unknown. Like, you're talking about a few other cases similar. So it's like, we don't really know what to do. So then I started chemo that was initially meant to be 3 months, which was all right. It's a different type. It's like basically like chemo tablets, which a lot can go now. But then I had to still sit in the chair and whatever and get pumped full of steroids and some other shit to keep me like going. So you're taking steroids and stuff to keep you sort of operating on those to like strengthen your immune system and everything. And then it pushed another 3 months. So it ended up at 6 months. And I thought I'm like, even after that first 3, I was like, yep, this is done, whatever. And then on call it another 3 months, and I get in at 6 months, and he just, oh yeah, I think we'll do another 6 months of this. And I'm like, I'm fucked, man. Like, chemo's shocking, which I'm sure everyone, everyone sadly has has an exposure to someone who's gone through that treatment and knows how hellish chemotherapy is. Like it's hellish, man. It's shock because it attacks cells. It just attacks any rapidly dividing cell. It doesn't matter if it's a tumor cell or cells in your nuts or cells in your brain. It doesn't matter. It attacks anything rapidly dividing. So I had to free sperm because you'll become you'll probably have no sperm count after this because that's rapidly dividing. You get chemo fog in your brain, so it starts killing brain cells. It's not targeted. That's the problem with chemo. It treats everything. Your toenails go to shit. All of it's just a full body. So you're just fucked. And that broke me, man. Like 6 more months, and that broke me. It was the hardest thing I've ever done physically, mentally, emotionally. Like any course to get on, like an army course, it's fucking a walk in the park compared to it. And it was like, what the fuck?
6 months.
Yeah, 6 more months. I ended up in hospital. I ended up in pretty much an ICU for a bit because I got like a minor infection, but I was that unwell that I ended up just fucked up, and I started all my veins because they were doing so many like IVs and shit on me. All my veins started like collapsing because you can't like IV then IV a vein like again and again, at least in a short period. So I started like collapsing veins to the point where no nurse could actually get a line in me in the fucking hospital. So they ended up bringing in like trauma surgeons. Like they had to like walk up the wing, get a trauma surgeon to come down and like, right, can you just get one in an artery or some shit? And the thing is, man, like this is all, low intensity stuff, but it's like you're so unwell. It's so frustrating, but then you've got this brain fog that you're sort of not knowing what's going on. Like I couldn't, for example, sit in a room with like the television on and talk to someone because my brain was running at like so low, like fucking RPM that I couldn't like judge between them because it was just so bad. And my girlfriend only this year has been, and it's like 4 years on, has been like, yeah, you seem so much more alert now. Like even the last year, it took you years to get over that like fog.
Wow.
And that's a whole bunch. It's stress related, it's drug related, it's like chemo drug related. All this. Oh man, that was hell. I know. Even sitting here with you, I can't believe I actually did that. Like you're talking to me now, I'm like, I can't believe that was a phase in my life. Like this is, and it's credit to the human body, man. It can bounce back from some fucking bullshit. Like, people in the military who your body has just been completely broken down over a week of an operation or whatever. And then, you bounce back and you're like, and you probably have a bit of this. You look back and you're like, I was actually that guy in the photo. Like, what the fuck? That was me. And there's photos of me in, a chemo chair all fucked up. And I'm like, that was me. Like, I can't believe that was actually a stage of life. And that's a bit of the beauty of life is I think, you should have, I'm not saying you should have fucking cancer, but you should have variety in life where I was that guy with the gun and I was that guy doing this, or like not just, I went to university and then I work in this office and it hasn't changed for 20 years. Like actually give yourself more variety, good and bad, or expose yourself to good and bad. But yeah, man, it was fucking hellish. And then I got to the end of it and it's like, look, you've become immune to the chemotherapy now. The problem with, and I can't remember the exact name of the drugs now, but there's only one that can actually cross the blood-brain barrier. So there's I think there's a few hundred different types of chemo out there that oncologists can like mix up. But for brain stuff, there's only one type that can actually cross that barrier and work in the brain. Problem is that same drug has a very high threshold for like immunity. Like you can build immunity to it very quickly and it basically stops working. And that's what happened to me was we saw like a pretty big decrease in the tumor by a few millimeters, which is a lot, in the first few months, and then just like no fucking change for 9 months because I basically built an immunity to the drug. It's foreign body, foreign thing. Your body's like, fuck this. It builds an immunity, doesn't do anything. So basically I had to stop chemo and now I'm watching weight. It's like, look, there's only one surgeon who would actually operate on me. Very infamous guy called Charlie Teo. And I think famous, like it is infamous for the wrong reasons. People think he's a bit of a cowboy, but he's not. And I'll defend him to the hills, but he's actually just been banned, like it's not debarred, like kicked out of the doctor's fellowship, whatever, can't operate in Australia. But all the other neuros, they're like, this is inoperable. So it's classified as inoperable. And you can't cure it, uncurable. So I just have a scan now every 3 months, basically just seeing what's changing. And if they could maybe do an operation down the line somewhere. But what they were originally trying to do with the chemo is imagine like you've got brain matter and tumor matter, and it's like this. What they were sort of trying to do was kill that like diffusion bit and have it more like this, so they could actually cut down the tumor out. Okay. So trying to like defuse that like outer, like that foggy edge of the tumor. It didn't exactly work like that. And with, neuroplasticity and things like this, bits of your actual control are taken up by the tumor. Like the tumor, this is the problem with brain tumors, man. These are a fucking prick. Is they can actually, because they're brain cells, they can actually take bits of like pieces of your actual neuroactivity on board or pass through them. And it's fucking wild. Like when I did the functional MRI, they're like, oh, yeah, move your foot. And it's like my foot would move and you'd see which part of your brain's firing. And it's like, oh, it's firing over here, but that passes directly through the tumor. And it's like, what the fuck? And they have people, man, who's like half their fucking brain is like tumor operating, like, and they don't even know. It's a shocking thing. It's, oh yeah, these things are absolute prick, man. It's absolute prick.
What do they tell you when you finish that 6 months or the 3 months after, and you've done the scans again? Like what are the doctors telling you your prognosis is at that point?
Yeah, so I've only ever been given a time frame from one doctor who was the radiologist who does radiotherapy. So, and he said 5 or 7 years, and it's been fucking 5 now. But my primary neurosurgeon, and she's unbelievable, this Professor Amal, and in something people need to learn too, but if you ever see neuro, is like people are like, they're the rudest people ever. And you're like, yeah, because they're not normal people. They're not you and I who are hanging out with the boys, drinking beers in the army. They've gone and studied for 10 years, and then they continue studying every single day, and they're working with people whose prognosis is shit. Like, I think about her and I'm like, the prognosis of, you're telling someone every single day of their life that they're dying like quickly, and a horrible way to go. Like, brain tumors, whatever, is not a good way to go. Because you start losing yourself, all this shit. They're dealing with that all the time. They're still studying. She spends like 6 months a year, either in Europe or the States, still like continue further study on the brain because it's so complex. The reason they seem like weird people is because they're somewhere on the fucking on the spectrum somewhere. Because you need to be like, a neurosurgeon is not you or I to do a 14-hour surgery on a brain. You and I, normal people, don't do that. They're the 0.1% who can do that. And what lacks is social skills. They're sort of doctor-patient relationship. So you're like, just fucking put up with it if they're a bit short or whatever. But she's incredible. And she is still like, look, we're getting good news in these scans every 3 months. Like, it's not changing quickly. Like, there's little bits of growth here and there, but not very little. And she's like, look, there's no reason to do anything really drastic at the moment. Not that there's really anything available, but that, and she'll always like finish with like, have no doubt this will kill you. Like, this is not, you don't walk away from this. This will get you at some point. I just don't know if it's going to be a year or 10 or whatever. And she's like, it's most of the studies we have on this are in either very young or very old people. So she's like, look, you're sort of sailing into the unknown. But like, and they'll open with you. And this is the way they have to be dealing with, I know how military guys talk about death when they're exposed to more death. They're pretty just blunt with it. They're very open to it. And doctors like this are even more so. They don't care. They don't care telling you like you're going to die at some point. So yeah, it's one of those things, but and she's pretty open. She's a lot more personable than a lot of other doctors, but she'll be like, look, just keep doing what you're doing. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy what you can. Don't worry about all this fad bullshit. She's like, look, yeah, there's like maybe some so slim evidence of all this weird shit, but she's like, look, just live your life. Like, and I had this with another surgeon who he offered me a surgery, and he's like, but it's so risky. He's like, I could maybe give you 1 or 2 more years, but the odds of you being like in a wheelchair or having some severe neurological deficit are very high. So he's like, what you've got to weigh up is, do you want 1 or 2 more years, but you're going to have a deficit from this point? Or would you give up a few years and be like you are now? Like, after this, I'm going to go fucking train legs and fuck around at the gym. Like, And I think when you face, and I'm fucking 22 when I'm faced with this too. Like I'm still a fucking young dude at that point. I didn't realize how young I was until I've got older now, if that makes sense. And you're fucking young and facing that. And I think most people, if you said to yourself, like, would you rather have your full ability, full cognitive ability, everything for 5 years, or you're going to have 6 years, but from this point, you're going to lose some deficit? And for people who live lifestyles like maybe you or I, or, whatever, you go the first option. You sort of sail it you're sailing a ship with the hole in the side of it as far as you can go. And that was sort of his recommendation too. He's like, if you got in here and you just told me that you sit around watching TV and, do whatever, or you just want to live a few more years, I'd probably, more push you that way. But, you're doing this, well, the life you live, sport and gym and traveling or whatever, I'd give up a few years to keep my ability. And I think most people would, but it's still a very hard, like most people, it's easy to think about that situation like here and now and like, oh, of course you'd make that. But when you're actually facing that, like, no, you're going to fucking die. That is more difficult. But yeah, we're just a scan. I've got a scan in, I think, about a month. I've got my calendar here somewhere. So another one to see. And at one point, one of these scans is going to be not good. Like, so far I'm getting pretty good results of them. But one will be like, yeah, right. And then the options of what we do, the scans are hopeful, man. Like the scans are like, a lot of neuros are actually like, they're fucking pointless. Like why? We shouldn't bother with the scan, but I do it with my neuro because it's almost like a bit of a peace thing. It feels like you're still being proactive. Like it feels like you're still somewhat in charge of the tumor, which you're fucking not, but it's part of it. Yeah.
Man, that is so wild. So what happens? You make your decision, and what are you thinking about the way ahead? Are you still like, oh, I've got a military retirement, have to fill out some paperwork, there's a medical retirement, or what's your path for the next couple of years after you go through all that?
So I had about 14 or 15 months off work with chemo. Like I tried to go to work in the beginning and it was just too hard. Like just physically too hard. You're working in a company of 130 dudes. Someone at some point is going to be sick, like at all points. So I just picked that up instantly because my immune system was just blown to shit. So I ended up having time off plus some recovery time, whatever else. And then returned to work for probably 2.5 years. I was back in the fold. Now, of course, I was still heavily restricted physically. So I'd still do PT and everything, but it was like I was I couldn't deploy. Could I go do some exercises and shit? But other than that, I still got back, and then I was a corporal, like promoted, acting sergeant for a bit. I was still in the fold. I was still an infantryman, and that was a goal of mine, was to actually get back to that before I knew I was good. The day I was diagnosed, I was medical retirement was bound to happen, but I sort of wanted to finish chemo and then sort of get back to it before I left. So I spent another 2 and a bit years in the fold. So I've got 2019 to early 21. So I was back in. What was really good, back into PT with the guys, with whatever, what was great, and then medically separated from there. So, and I'm glad I did it. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you're wasting your time and this and that, but I'm glad that I sort of didn't let it, because look, let's be fucking honest, like it is going to beat me. Like, it doesn't matter what fancy diet, what fancy drugs, whatever, like this is going to get you at some point. It's nice to still hold some things in your own control. And that's where, where the commander always would say, control the controllables. And, my controllables in this are fucking very limited. And my controllables are, I guess, my own health and fitness, which I've always been very big on, the gym, whatever, even though I put on a lot of weight through a lot of the steroids I've been taking. But that's one of your controllables, and your emotional mental state is an incredible variable in this. And we haven't truly figured out yet how much of an impact like stress has. When I say we, I mean surgeons, not fucking we. But stress, emotional stuff, sleep, that has a huge impact on the outcome of of everything, of your life, of everything. Especially if you've got a fucking tumor in your head. So that's a big one that you can control. And you can control, mental health stuff. You really are in control of that. As well as, Australia became the first country in the world to prescribe exercise for cancer, which is something I'm so fucking proud of Australia for doing, because everyone knows that exercise and cancer treatment, whatever, is so good for you. Even if you feel like fucking shit, like, you're on chemo, the last thing I remember, man, I lost so much muscle mass during chemo that I went into my gym and I couldn't move the bench I couldn't lift the bench to move it in the gym. That fucking 20 pounds of it, I couldn't even lift it. And I'm like, what the fuck? But they're like prescribing hard exercise, like actual workouts, not like go and do some fucking stretching. No. Like, we're the first country to prescribe like CrossFit style workouts because of how good it is for you. Now, I never actually got officially prescribed it because I was a gym goer anyway, but they're doing it now, and it's like people don't. And there's a medical form on this online, like the study you can actually look up. But I'll never forget, there's a quote in it like, if the effects of exercise were able to be in pill form, we would give every cancer patient around the world this pill day one. Like if you could actually bottle up exercise, like the ability for cancer, everyone would take it, no questions asked. It would be the best thing. Wow. It's what would give everyone. Yeah. And I've been very, very big on continuing exercise through my treatment, what was fucking hellish. Like I went from like 180 kilo squat, I don't know how much that is in pounds, high 300s maybe, to not lifting a bench within a few weeks, which is fucking depressing. But it's part of it. And your lung capacity, everything goes to shit. You can lose like 40-50% of your lung capacity from the drugs, whatever. It's just hellish, but like, it's such an important thing. And I'm so glad that I'm a bit of an upholder of that. And I'd like tell everyone, I'm like, nah, these, if you've been diagnosed with this, you still need to like get in the gym, do something hard. Like it's so fucking good for you. Yeah.
Man, so when do you start Instagram page, Willy Beating Cancer, and that sort of a thing? When did you decide to share this journey?
So to be honest, that was like right in the beginning, and it never was going to be like, I never had any goal of being like a public fucking figure online. I never, like, I had no aspiration. But when you first diagnose something like this, you're finding out different information like every day. You're finding out doctor's appointments, different info. And it was like, I can't be fucked telling everyone my life because I've got to call my parents. Then I've got to call extended family. I've got to tell my friends. It was just too much. Excuse me. So I basically started this as, look, I'm just going to make an Instagram page and I'm not going to ring all of you individually. I'm just going to put up what I'm finding out day to day there. And you guys can, oh yeah, he's found out this, we found out that. That's going to be it. And it was literally, like a normal Instagram, to your couple hundred friends and family. And it sort of caught on and took off to what it is, I guess, now, in the tens of thousands of followers. Because I guess people liked my attitude of just like, taking the piss out of myself a little bit and whatever. And it just went from there, man. So yeah, it was just every day. It would never had any end state. It was just, that was it. I just wanted to let people know what was going on who were close to me. And then people, must have felt like some connection to it. And then I started my charity stuff, raised a few $100,000 for cancer research for things like that, that database I was telling you about, and a few other things. I think they actually work with IBM, I think, on that. So little bits and pieces like that as well. It's and that was one of the controllables too, was I can't control my outcome, but because of course the research is going to take a long time to go up and down that chain of command, like we talked about in the beginning, from a professor somewhere mixing fucking vials of shit to then a drug on the town, not serving chemo out of your bloody back of your car, but a drug that you take. That's a decade or more long process. But one of the controllables for me was, well, if I can, donate money and time, whatever, to this research, that is a controllable of this still, that, in 10, 15, 20 years, that some kid, because it's mainly kids are affected by this. If some kid gets, a diagnosis similar to me, there's going to be better outcomes, or longer life. So that's another controllable for me. And those are so good for your health too, to have some influence on what the actual outcome is. And that outcome does not need to be your own outcome. And it's like this in the military that, there's guys who, they've developed something or written something into, doctrine that won't affect them, but it will affect the generation next. And they should be very fucking proud of that, that these guys who have done, this is how we do, urban door clearance or something, and you've developed new doctrine, whatever, even if you've never done that live, there's been someone there and you fucking capped them, that you've developed that, and it's like part of the legacy of this. And even it gets rewritten over and done again. People should be more proud of like the things that don't have a direct effect on them, if that makes sense. Like with yourself, like, you probably have a lot more effect than you probably realize. So, probably inspired a lot of guys to join the militaries or start riding or whatever. And that's something else you should be very like stoked onto. And I am proud of myself on bits and pieces like that with people that have uptaken random bits and pieces that will outlive myself. And that's my sort of legacy, I guess.
Introducing the PARD TD32 multi-spectral rifle scope, combining thermal and night vision for unbeatable performance. Effortlessly switch between daytime, night vision, and thermal modes with the picture-in-picture feature. Spot targets accurately with thermal and night vision precision. Hit your mark every time, day or night, with a built-in 1,200-yard laser rangefinder. Upgrade your shooting game with the TD32 multi-spectral rifle scope by PARD. I'm installing this on a rifle this week, and I'm fired up to give it a run. Go to PARD.com to get your TD32 multi-spectral rifle scope today. Man, well, what did you do between these years before you zip off to Ukraine? I remember we got connected, earlier on, and then all of a sudden, what is it? Things kind of blend, like I said, so a year ago ish. All of a sudden you're going off to Ukraine. I'm like, what he was doing what? And you're kind of early in there, I think, and doing some amazing reporting. And so what are you doing between the things that we just talked about and when all of a sudden I see you're zipping off to Ukraine?
Yeah, so I got it in late January 21, or maybe it was February 21, but it was early 21. And I actually went over to Ukraine about a month before the war started. But in that year, man, like I did some speaking engagements, I did some whatever, but I didn't really do much. I think I had a bit of a rough transition out of defense. It actually, because it wasn't like voluntary, I was medically pushed out the door. Now, this isn't to say anyone pushed me out the door, but the system pushed me, at the end of the day, the medical system is like, if you're not getting better, we're not keeping you around. Even if all my rank wanted, and they even signed random waivers, like my rank did everything they could to keep me in it. And this was from like top of army, man. Like, they did absolutely everything they could do to keep me around. But it got to a point where I'm like, look, the right thing to do is get out, even if I don't want to. So I had about, 11 or 12 months there of not that much. Did some speaking gigs, did some random stuff, but nothing really to speak of highly. And that was just shit transition. And I probably wasn't the best transitioner out of military. Because it's a hard thing. Like I've been in there since high school. Like, I didn't know anything else. And it's not like I'm going to go to university or anything because I don't have that fucking long. So I don't even know really what gave me the itch, but I was like, I'm still interested in like conflict stuff. I still have that scratch, that itch that it hasn't been scratched that much, and I need to do the stuff like that again. And I've got experience, and I've got my head screwed on, whatever. And in late January 22, about a month before the war, I contacted some guys I know work in some communities, and it was like, hey, like, look, there's odds that this is going to happen. There's odds there's going to be like a full scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, and legitimately, man, like everyone at the fucking time, if you saw 90% of people, 99% of people, where's Ukraine on the map? Wouldn't fucking know. Before then, what color's the flag? No one would fucking know. Who's the president? No one fucking knew. Who went to Ukraine? Maybe some Europeans, but not from Australia or the States. Like, no. Maybe some weird sex tourists or something, or some business, but not really. so I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go to Ukraine. And I landed there very early February. And just fucking landed there, man. Like I flew in with a camera and a fucking like weird visa COVID fucking waiver certificate bullshit. And I was just like, fucking what now? Like I landed in Kyiv and I'm like, okay, sweet. And I started filming around Kyiv a little bit and whatever, because it's an interesting fucking place. And then work my way down to the east into Kharkiv Oblast, which, has been, very heavily in the beginning of the war, at least. And it's still now, actually. There's a lot of fighting around that area. And meet all these really good friends there. Like I went to like this random like bar where they try and learn some English, and they never meet like native English speakers. Like they go to English school, because I'm pretty sure if you're a Ukrainian who speaks English, you can earn like 40% more on average. So they really want to learn decent English. And I made like all these friends like instantly, like the most fucking lovely people I've ever met in my life. Sadly, a few of the men have now actually been killed. But I met like all these incredible people. And telling me stuff about like the culture and this and that and where the rift is there, but also this idea of like, no, the war's not fucking happening. Like they're like, Russia's been like this for fucking ever, like especially since 2014. It's always been, oh, we're gonna, and it's like, fuck off. It's just like, it's muscle flexing. It's like China on Taiwan. It's like, it's just, they're saying it's just not happening. It's just not going to happen. And then eventually moved down into the infamous, I guess, Donbass region, like out of Kramatorsk. I was working then near on the front line, and I'm not accredited or anything at this point. I'm just making YouTube videos, man. And there's still a lot of shelling and shit on the front line there, but not too much. A little bit of here or there, but it was so fucking weird, like that type of warfare where you're like that tree line, you can see the Russian trench, and our trench is here, and you're like, what the fuck? Like this is so fucking weird. Like coming from backgrounds like, I know you're a fair bit more up than I, but you come from that very asymmetrical warfare background where that trench to trench grenade throwing warfare, or they've lobbed a mortar, let's lob one back into their, like that just isn't like, we're like, what? That doesn't really, we learn that shit, but it's not like it's all asymmetrical stuff. And so it's just like, that was a weird thing to me. Like this is trench warfare, and these guys have been here for 2 years. Like, what the fuck? Living in houses out the back, or living in these like concrete buildings, and there's civilians here just living amongst whatever. And at 5 o'clock, the watchdogs, whatever they're called, fuck, I should remember them, but they're like the war crime, not war crime, the like shelling watchdogs to see where the shelling is. They knock off at 5 o'clock, so the shelling's about to start, and the civilians would be like, "Yeah, no, I need to go inside." And like the babushka would run inside. And because they know in 5 minutes, because the UN people are going to go home who observe the fucking shit, who observe any, like fucking shit not happening, they go home and then the shelling starts. Like, it's just fucking wild. It was like on timer at that. And then I moved back into Kramatorsk. There was some rumors of invasion, and like, oh, this is just a piss take. I had a few mates across there who are now, like some security for like things like Al Jazeera and whatever, like guys who I knew from the army. Yeah. And they also was pumping some more more info to me, being like, oh, it could be. Just make, typical army shit, like make sure your bag's packed every night, things like this. And then, one of the guys I knew, he was like, it's happening tomorrow. And I'm like, no, it's fucking not. Like, fuck off. Like, people have been saying it's happening tomorrow now every day I've been here. So I'm out singing karaoke.
One day they're going to be right.
Literally, yeah. I'm out singing karaoke, man. I'm fucking around. Next thing, I wake up at like 4 a.m. to just like this rolling thunder sound. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Look out my window of my fucking Airbnb. And like the multi-launch rocket system, like the grad launch, you can just see in the distance, just like it looks like a sparkler on the ground almost. You can just see like the pop, 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 pop of like the red flashes of the multi-launch rocket system hitting like Ukrainian positions. And then that very, me and another guy, we decided to, go film and then make some moves. Very infamous video of then the Caliber cruise missile going over the top of our heads and hitting in front of us. That video went like giga viral. And we thought, it was going to be the Russian army of stories we'd heard. We thought that the Russian army was going to walk across that country I remember saying, like, how far away is that front line from where we are now? Fucking, 15 miles. Well, a fucking T-90 rolls at, 60 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour. So they could be here, let's say that's on average, but they could go that speed, but they're going to be moving at fucking 5 or 10. They're going to be here in a fucking 2 hours. We need to fucking go. Because that's what everyone fucking thought, man. Everyone thought it was going to be the equivalent of America invading Mexico. That's what they thought it was going to be. So it was fucking chaos in that first morning was fucking chaos. And I was live streaming with Funker and all this shit. What was weird. And of course, we've seen how the war's gone. Like that same place I was still isn't occupied. And won't be, I don't think, ever, personally. But it's one of those things. It was just fucking chaotic, man. And I'm at this, on the forefront of a full-scale conventional war that we thought was going to be a walkover for the Russians. The Russians did some very clever things in those first days too that I think we need to observe more of this rather than just saying, Russia's shit, whatever. Like, whatever. You can say that all you want, but what actually went well in that space, we need to look at that. What went really well was the informational space, that Russia dominated social medias in those first hours or days. So there's all these fake videos, but these fake videos don't look that fucking fake of like Su-57 planes going over Kyiv in fucking bunches of 5 or whatever. And we're seeing this, man. Now, you might look at it now and go, oh, yeah, you can see that wing glitch is there, so it's fake. If you're in the fucking Donbass on your fucking phone, trying to report, speak to the boys at do whatever, and you see that video and it's come out being shared around that there's fucking Su-57, it's like a Wish.com version of an F-22 cruising over the fucking capital, you're like, we need to fucking go. Like, this is going to get really bad. Videos of bombers going over. And a lot of the videos were fucking fake. And I think people have forgotten about this. But that worked. Like, that really fucking worked on that like informational space. They dominated those first days. Ukraine dominated from then on. Like, they still dominate the informational space through not only in NAFO stuff and online, but also through bots and whatever as well. But yeah, they dominated those first days. And we need to look at like, hey, that shit that we could do too. So moved out of the country within 72 hours. I spent like, say, 48 hours in country and then moved out of the country for a few days, basically to be like, because I was still convinced, and so was everyone, that the country was going to be walked over. Hindsight would say, oh, you should have, but, we really didn't know. There's paratroopers landing on the Kiev fucking airfield, mate, at Hostomel. Like, if you're 1,000 kilometers fucking further east of that, you're like, is this going to get cut off? Like, we were looking like, they're there. We could get cut off. We need to, like, it was the right decision. It was the right decision at the time.
Yeah.
Even if, now you'd look back at it. But moved out, actually finally got my fucking paperwork sorted for being accredited. Thank fuck. Because I kept getting arrested by like the secret police, like the SBU, because they thought I was a spy, man. Like and people still think I'm a spy because they're like, you were there a month early filming there. The war then happened and you're moving around here, blah, blah, blah. Like, what the fuck? And I get it. If I was one of those cops, I'd be fucking, I'd be picking you too. I'm like, hang on, what are you doing here?
Right.
So you're ex-military. You do this and you're carrying a camera taking photos of tanks and this is like, hang on, what?
Right. And your beard is pretty legit at this point, I think.
But the beard was fucking sick, man. The beard was awesome. So it was all of that. And I'm Australian, like, in Australian in the far east of Ukraine, people are like, what the fuck are you doing here? Yeah. Like, go sit on the beach.
And you go back in? Is that what you do? You go back in, you get your accreditation, and then you head back in?
Yeah. Yeah, so I went for about, it might have been 5-6 days. I actually went to Belgium to do some stuff with some like NATO like interviews and shit up there. And then that got accredited, whatever. Pushed back then across into Ukraine. And this point was when Kyiv was like fully under fucking siege. So we were more operating around the west of the country.
How do you get there? Do you take a train in or are you driving in? How are you getting there?
No, we actually didn't get in. So at that point we walked across the border. We walked in and got someone to pick us up. That trip in was a little bit shit because Kyiv was under, you couldn't get in or out of Kyiv. that was when Russia really still had the like they were still pretty much winning the war. Everything was going well. This is week one, man. Like, it's easy to look back now 18 months and go, oh, this and that. But it's like, at that point, you're like, there's Russian VDV landing on the airfield. Like, this isn't going well. And we thought the VDV were like, a fucking airborne regiment. Like, you still think, like, don't get me wrong. This is one of the big things people get wrong about the war. There are very, very good soldiers amongst the Russian ranks. It's just very limited. There's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of shit. But you speak to some of the boys I speak to, who are some foreign fighters there, they're like, man, we went up against like this SF unit and we got fucking smoked. Like, they really knew what they were fucking doing. I'll talk on that in a sec. But yeah, that trip was a bit useless. Then I went back in for another, I think I came home, got something else. Oh no, I came home for a fucking brain scan. Sorry, yeah, I spent whatever time there. Then I flew home, got a fucking brain scan.
Okay.
And then I went back for, I think, 7 weeks. Maybe a bit longer, 7 or 9 weeks or something, and then went back for 3 months following that. So all up, I've spent about 7 or 8 months there, in all different factions of the war. The initial invasion, the counteroffensive in Kharkiv, Kherson, like some different. So I've got to see a fair bit of the war. Got to see some very savage bits too. Like we weren't really meant to be there, but we had a really good fixer get us in really right behind like the counter-offensive push around Kharkiv. So there's still a lot of bodies on the ground, civilians, soldiers, whatever, basements full of bodies, wells full of bodies, from pretty fucking hectic shit, man. Some very very confronting. And this is where I have this, and a lot of people hate me for it and a lot of people love me for it, is my thing of like, no matter which side of this on, they're still young men. Like, and I say to people, like, the people that don't think that these, these Russian orcs and shit, and I'm like, well, you weren't me standing in, and I've got video of this, but I'll never release it, I don't think, standing in a house looking at a basement full of Russian bodies. And these are young men's faces looking back at you. These are me. This is a 20-year-old, 18, 17-year-old man looking back at you. That's still a human. Like, they might be on the wrong side of history or whatever you want to say, but it's still a human. And if you and I were born in fucking Russia, mate, we'd probably be there. And same as if you and I were born in Afghanistan, we'd probably have joined the fucking Taliban. Like, you and I'd probably be like, these fucking assholes coming across the world to try and fuck you. And same as if we're in Ukraine, we'd be in the Ukrainian force. And I still have, a very humane approach to that, which a lot of people don't like, but I don't care. Like, I can sleep easier at night being like that. So yeah, it was a pretty wild time in and out of Ukraine.
Yeah. Were you ever contacted by U.S. intelligence service or military organization for debriefs, or, hey, if you happen to be here, take a look at this, that, or the other thing?
I know a lot of people who were, if you find this sort of night flying equipment, this radio, blah, 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 get in touch, whatever. There was a lot of that happening. Personally not, but yeah, it definitely happened over there, which everyone knows it happened. But this goes both ways too. There's a lot of photos of the FSB getting equipment too, like, getting, if they find a Javelin on the front line or a Harris radio or whatever too. So the intel space is huge. And it's probably something people don't realize, that, the intel space is massive. You need to be pretty careful of what you're doing in a country like that. Like, even getting in taxis and Ubers and stuff, you don't know who's driving that fucking car. Like, it's pretty easy to sign up as a taxi driver. You don't know who that bloke is. You don't know if he's ex-fuck KGB, FSB, GUR, like, or, either Russian or Ukrainian, collecting intelligence. Like, that's a pretty easy way to do it. Get an Uber and, where are you going? Oh, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like you never give any intel to fucking barbers or bartenders. They know everything. So the intelligence space there is huge for sure.
Yeah. Did you talk to any, I guess, Ukrainians in the lead up to the invasion or afterward that were supportive of, or understood what Russia was doing and was like, yeah, this is going to happen, and we're just...
Oh, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, man. Yeah, there's a video on my YouTube, not to plug myself, but...
No, please do. I want people to go to that YouTube channel and check out all those videos, because it's amazing reporting.
Yeah, it's the channel's Willy OAM, because I got a Queen's Order of Australia medal, but there's a fucking shove that in there. But there's a video called like pro-Russian versus pro-Ukrainian protest or something, and this is before the war. There was full-on demonstrations in areas and there was, as many pro-Russians as there were pro-Ukrainians. And the further west you go, the more western the country gets. So like Lviv, which is far west, is very similar to like Poland. But the further east you go in Ukraine, the more and more Russian it gets. And even the language. So like in Lviv, Kiev, people speak a lot of Ukrainian, a little bit of Russian. But the further east you go, people speak only Russian, or primarily only Russian. And it becomes more Eastern like that. So it's interesting like this, but especially there, there was fucking heaps of demonstrations for pro-Russians. I've met heaps of people at pro-Russian. My fixer at one point, like before the invasion, who actually took us out of when the fighting happened, like the primary invasion, he was pro-Russian as fuck. So we're a bit concerned with like, because this dude, we actually bonded with him because he was my fixer. He spoke fuck all English, and he was something along the lines like, "What's your experience?" I was like, "I've been in Afghanistan." And he looks, he's like, "Me too. You guys are pussies." And I'm like, fuck, like this guy's old Soviet Afghan vet, who just thinks all the Westerners who went there are pussies. And I'm like, fucking, what a legend. Like that's so fucking funny. But he was pro-Russian as fuck. And I never forget, like the morning he drove us out, looking at like my GPS, being like, if he starts going fucking east, I'm getting out of this car. Like, like who's he not to be just, driving, the intelligence agencies over there are known for using a lot of just random people too. So yeah, that's absolutely a big part of it. But luckily he took us out, through to wherever. So that was lucky. But there's still a lot of community, man, who are pro-Russian people. That's why there's a lot of, like civilian problems there. A lot of people working for the Russians, targeting, troops will walk into an area and they'll ring the Russian artillery and they'll drop a bomb at this grid or take pot shots at them. And especially around Kharkiv area, lots of checkpoints before going on, near the front. Even later in the war, 9 months in, would be telling us like, hey, be fucking careful. The civilians do not like us. Like their partisan behavior is huge. So maybe don't go into this town, stay outside of it and film in. So yeah, it's definitely not 50-50. Some areas it would be, some would be fucking more. And a lot of the people remaining, people don't like to say it, a lot of the people who remain in these areas are pro-Russian. There's all the opportunity in the world to get out. And you're like, well, hang on, you've been in this fucking town getting bombed for a year. How the fuck haven't you left? And a lot of them are pro-Russian. Now, a lot of them are very poor and can't leave too. Don't get me wrong. But there is a definite bit of that. And there's been a shitload of Ukrainians go to Russia too. A shitload of them go that way. So that's just that's the fact of the matter.
Yeah. Did you witness or did you talk to anybody who witnessed or have discussions about suppression of dissidents, other political parties in Ukraine, just that had a different take on how to handle things, or what is that situation like?
Oh, absolutely. And I think most of it. So I think I'm incredibly blessed to have been there before the war, because as soon as the war has started, everything just got foggy instantly. Because martial law's enacted. So martial law, you don't need to have elections and things like this. That it's so foggy. But being before the war, when it's still sort of an acting democracy, you get to see how it was working. And in that, I'm trying to really think back now for better examples for you. But even then, the pro-Russians I was talking to on the street in Kharkiv, they were like, well, they've shut down the TV station we had was, whatever it was called, it's just shut down. And the problem with this shit is, where does free speech begin and end, and when does propaganda begin and end? That's the issue. And look, no democracy in the world has this worked out, because American, Australian media, being someone who's independent media, I see so much of our media as propaganda, left, propaganda, right. Like, but where is propaganda and where is inciting violence and where is then freedom of speech. And that's a very hard thing to sort of work out. And I'm glad I'm not a policymaker around this. So yeah, we don't want, like America would say, America, you know, very famous for freedom of speech, but you guys wouldn't want a TV channel from the Chinese Communist Party pumping propaganda into America either. So you understand, you're like, hey, we don't want this. Now, I don't speak Russian or Ukrainian, so I don't speak Russian. So I don't know exactly what was said on that TV channel. So it's like, hang on, is Russia pumping this into Ukraine as propaganda, similarly to if China was pumping in communist message into America? You'd also say that's not freedom of speech. That's propaganda, is bullshit. So I don't know if that's a good analogy or not. And that's how it was explained to me from more the pro-Ukrainian side of this. But, you know, a lot of complaints around suppression of political leaders, suppression of media, and suppression of media is big. But again, where does free media start and stop? You know, myself as a journalist, I think I should have complete free reign of media, that I should be able to film Ukrainians working and then walk across the fucking front line without being shot, film the Russians, and then walk into fucking wherever. And, you know, but then as a soldier, I completely understand. I don't want this fucking idiot here with a camera can geolocate my position or can walk over there and go, oh, they're at fucking this grid.
Right.
Like, so I get both sides of this, and I get why there is suppression, because not all, 99% of journalists are not like like a military background. So they don't get how easily things can be geolocated. How, oh no, we're 20 Ks on the front line. Yeah, they can still shove an artillery round up your ass at this point. They don't understand this. So, you know, and there's a lot of like a blanket sort of black ban on media.
Yeah. What about suppression of political parties or just dissenting voices, not necessarily propaganda, but something that's obviously another political party? Is there suppression going on there?
Look, I'm really not an expert on the political system there, because it just doesn't interest me to like learn. And I really should be, but I'm more interested in like movements of like the military side. But oh, absolutely, there is. But well, like there's no elections this year. When there's meant to be elections, I believe. I did a piece on this the other day. I believe by October there's meant to be an election. I'm not really sure how their system works, you know, because there's like primary elections and then the presidential election, whatever it is. But yeah, it's absolutely suppressed. Like the voting's not happening. There's not going to be an election. But also under Ukrainian law, under martial law, that doesn't have to happen. But then that was put through on like the 25th of February, so like a day or two after the start of the war. So look, there is some dodgy shit happening there, but then I always have to like add to myself, I'm like, yeah, but then is it like, yes, but we have to have this. Like we can't have an election during the fucking war. I don't know. I could make a point on both sides, if that makes sense. Like I could make a good argument for, of course, the argument for democracy, which, you know, we both are in capitalist democratic countries, and it's not it's not a perfect system, but it's the best we've fucking got. But then, you know, there is a point at which you're like, yeah, but if we're in a war, do we really want to be fucking around with this other shit? So I could make a pretty good argument on both sides, but people have this illusion, and this will get me in a bit of trouble, but Ukraine is not, think of like the most democratic country in the world, maybe like Denmark, say, who would, you know, top on freedom indexes and things, and like living stuff, you know, the best living, whatever, schooling, healthcare, whatever, like shit, and like the democracy there is fantastic. People online will imagine Ukraine's like that. Ukraine is not the Denmark of democracy. Like, don't fucking kid yourself. Like these bots online, you're like, no. Just because now we're seeing it like this, don't think that Ukraine wasn't incredibly corrupt at all levels, and it wasn't, you know, it was a struggling along democracy. They were trying to instill democracy, but there was influence from other areas, and there was corruption happening and oligarchs in the fold, and the courts were all elected, were all officials that, you know, were put in by other officials. Like, you know, don't tell me that Ukraine's democracy was Denmark. It fucking was not. Nor is it the corruption level of a smaller Scandinavian country that has their shit locked down. Like, no, it was very corrupt. the democracy was struggling along. It was getting better. It was definitely getting better. Both corruption and democracy was getting better, but it wasn't Finland. It definitely was not that. And this is the thing, the Ukrainian people, like I've got fucking heaps of Ukrainian friends. So many of them are like, thank you so much for someone who's a fucking figure speaking out about this and actually saying like, these are fucking problems. Because if you don't speak out against it, it will continue. Like the only way, to kill mold, you need sunlight. You need to draw sunlight to this. And people just fucking ignore it because it doesn't fit the narrative. And so many media there, man. One, a lot of the media never leave Kyiv. They're sitting in the Intercontinental paying $500 a night, putting on their body armor to do a fucking report from the balcony. And, you don't see it. You don't see in the villages because Kyiv is, oh, look at how wealthy these people are. And you're like, no, that is in the fucking capital city. That's like going to New York and look how fucking rich everyone is down Wall Street. Well, you're not in the fucking backwoods of Alabama. Like, it's not the average American, say. And Ukraine's like that. That Kyiv, there's a lot of money in Kyiv. It's a pretty nice city. But you go out in these villages, man, and you're like, holy shit, like this is the average Ukrainian earns $3,000 a year. You get that real perspective. And those people are like not being benefited by any of this shit. I don't mind the corruption. If it's an old babushka who's taken $50 off the top, who lives on $3,000 a year pension or with less pension than that, I have no fucking problem with that.
That's different than the Ukrainians in Europe driving G-Wagons and that sort of thing.
Well, that's
over $100 billion will, they'll pay for a couple G-Wagons.
Well, that's the thing is I can't show any like direct corruption against that money, but we've done this before. I can't remember the dates now, but it was in the early to late teen years, so 2013-ish or maybe later. The UN went to give a heap of money to Ukraine and had to stop it because of the corruption. And that's why we initially were like, we'll give weapon systems, not cash. It is very corrupt. Now, I know we've got anti-corruption agencies there. We're really trying to get on top of it. Zelensky looks like he's trying to get on top of it. Like, he's been caught up in some very scandalous things as well previously, with whatever they called the files. Anyway, but it's always hard because the Russian intelligence are good at what they do. They can influence things well, and public opinion. But people need to have a look at Ukraine pre this war and see how it was being reported. These far right parties, these far neo-Nazi militias, and this and that. And I can tell you what doesn't get rid of that is a war. It makes it way worse. Like if you've got corruption and like nationalist behavior, trust me, a war does not fix that. A war exacerbates it fucking tremendously. And there's going to be two wars in Ukraine. There's going to be the war they've got now, like, fighting the Russians. And then there's going to be the war infighting after this. However this war ends, if Ukraine need to join the EU and NATO, or want to join the EU and NATO, well, there's going to be a lot of things that need to be fucking cleaned up. And there's going to be, different units out there who they're going to be like, oh, what the fuck were they doing? As well as political parties, factions, all of this. And that's going to be a huge uphill battle for Ukraine. I know we're, joining NATO and this and that and the EU. I just can't see the EU states, even if the war ended tomorrow, being like, yeah, we accept this because as soon as you accept, you take on everything there too. The $1 trillion worth of damage or something that's been caused. So it's a rock and a hard place, man, I think, for many Ukrainians. And this is my thing is I really, really feel for like the average Ukrainian is not driving the G-Wagon around Warsaw. That's happening. Like you listen to some Europeans, like the nicest cars I see in Europe have Ukrainian number plates. But you notice the Ferrari with the Ukrainian number plates. You don't notice the million fucking Ladas out there with, that haven't even crossed into Europe because they can't afford it. Things like this. So it's not the average, but it is a problem too. And it's going to be even more of a problem when we transition from military hardware to rebuilding and we're contracting. We need, because the road network alone was estimated in the hundreds of billions of dollars of damage. Well, who's going to pick up the fucking contract? Like we've seen this before. So there's going to be problems. And I think a lot of this weighs on your election next year because look, well, Australia is not a NATO country. We're NATO aligned, but we're not in the alliance. But NATO is America. Like it just fucking is that, it all hinges on the states. And I think this is something more Americans should be pissed off about too, is people aren't really pulling their weight in that alliance too. It's like, oh no, America's here. Fuck them. Like, they'll do it. And Australia's a bit like that too, because there's more combat troops in Australia than Australian troops. American combat troops here up in fucking Darwin of the Marines.
It's a nice place.
Yeah, somewhat. But there's a bit of this behavior of like, well, if we get invaded, the fucking Yanks are going to if the Americans aren't here, we're fucked. Like now, Australia and America are we're close allies. So when the Republicans are in power, Australia is America's closest ally and Democrats, we're second. So whatever. And there's never been, since the formation of the Australian Army, we've fought in everything the Marines have fought. Very close to Marines and the Royal Australian Regiments. But in Europe, in NATO, there's a bit of this, and I see it. I'm like, hang on, you're not really pulling your weight. It's sort of this, oh no, America's NATO, they'll look after us, so fuck our defense. And you see this with some countries. Oh no, we're giving away our full military budget into this because America's here. And and I'm a bit like, fucking, that's a bit rough. If someone enters this war, America's then dragged in. So I don't really see that people are pulling their weight compared to the states. But the states has also set them up for this. And this is where you can make an argument for both sides. It's like, yes, America, but if America wants to be this superpower you are and enforce law across the entire world, well, suck shit. You're the ones enforcing that. You've got the biggest military and we don't do it. Your hands are tied. So it's both ways, I guess. Like America want this much influence. They need to maintain that much influence, what means you get fucked in some areas. It's like your healthcare system. With drugs, you guys get absolutely fucked compared to us. So, because if you need to go and buy a asthma puffer, you are paying full price for that. Where our government is like, we're not fucking paying that. So they get it cheaper, even off the company, and then to the consumer is cheaper. So, let alone our healthcare or not, you guys wear more. You guys wear all the fucking money because America, let's just say Pfizer, they've developed this asthma puffer. So you've done all the R&D, all the whatever, they're selling it to the consumer for $100, and then Australia steps in. You're like, oh, thanks for doing all that fucking medical research. We'll pay you $5 per puffer, and we benefit off America. So America's a bit like, you see that great white shark and all the little fish hanging around it, eating bits of scraps it doesn't fucking eat. That's a lot of countries are like that. And this is where so much of this war hinges on America next year. Where I'm going with this, if America has anyone but Biden, I think, voted in next year, this war is going to take a very large turn to the point of Trump, DeSantis, and fucking RFK, they do not support continuing this war. And I think there's a growing amount of American people who are like, hey, we've got Maui fires going on. We've got skyrocketing inflation. I cannot believe how bad your inflation is. It is fucked. Australia's pretty bad, and Australia has always been a more expensive country than America. Higher salaries, more expensive. Here, so I believe it was always about 17% more expensive in Australia than the States. I was in Texas 3 or 4 times this year. It is way, way more expensive than Australia. Fucking way more expensive, and your wages have not grown, but everything else has got so much more fucking expensive. So I believe now we've gone from 17% more expensive to 5% cheaper than America, which is fucking unbelievable for the size of your economy and country. What the fuck? So I think there's this growing sense of we don't want this fucking war. I believe there's more and more people, maybe even into the majority, running into these elections, man, is going to be the number one priority, is going to be the war. It's not going to be fucking trans rights or this bull. It's not going to be that. It's going to be this war. Now, there's an argument for, yes, but $100 billion of defense budget isn't that much. But there is an argument to be had there. But most people don't care about that argument. Most people go, my groceries have doubled in fucking price. Where the fuck is our money going? And vote one way or the other. And if Trump, RFK get in, they've already said this war's done. And Ukraine cannot continue. If America says we're out, Ukraine needs to end the war. It's people said, oh, we'll keep going and Europe will support. No, at the end of the day, yes, there's some nice European weapons in there. Fantastic stuff. Better stuff than the States make, like the French Caesars and some of the Saab weapons and stuff from Sweden. They're fucking great systems. Don't get me wrong. A fantastic system. But who's making the majority of the 155 ammo? Who's making all the 556? Like, at the end of the day, if the States isn't backing it, very quickly those F-16s won't be in the fucking air. It's reliant on American backing, and I don't know how Biden's part, the Democrats, are actually going to tackle this because it's not popular. Like, the last thing you want to run into an election with is a fucking ongoing war. How are you going to sell that to the people? But if he doesn't sell it to the people, well, at the speed of this counteroffensive, Ukraine's not getting all their territories back. So I think that election's actually a larger thing than a lot of people believe also.
Yeah. This is Jack Carr, and I want to talk to you about Schnee's boots. If you followed me for a while, you know what a big fan I am. This pair right here is the same pair that I've been wearing for over a decade now, and these are the ones that I wear when I want to come out heavier than I went in on a backcountry hunt. So love these things. They are absolutely awesome. And I have a bunch of different kinds of boots. They're pack boots, and go check them out at schnees.com, SCHNEES.com. Schnee's mountain boots are handmade in their Italian factory located in the foothills of the Italian Alps. Each boot is made from the absolute highest quality materials available, from the fine leathers to heavy-duty hardware and Vibram outsoles. They only sell direct to you without the middleman markup. This means they can put higher quality materials and craftsmanship in every boot, so you get more boot for your money. They are also all backed by Schnee's industry-leading customer service and support. When you call them, you'll talk to someone right there in Montana that actually wears the boots. So be sure and give them a call. They have a lot of options out there. Find the right boot for you. Definitely check them out. If you head over to schnees.com, SCHNEES.com, you can score up to 30% off your new pair of mountain boots. You heard that right. You can save 30% off any pair of regularly priced Schnee's mountain boots. Use promo code JACK23, JACK23. That's schnees.com, SCHNEES.com. JACK23 is the promo code. Enjoy those boots. Well, what you've seen in people you talk to over there, whether it was politicians or any sort of official, military, or just people in general, what is your assessment as far as if the U.S. or NATO had not supported Ukraine with military hardware and intelligence, would the Russian army have taken Ukraine by this point?
Oh, no, the Russian army would have taken it in 2 days, 3. So that initial, the whole idea online at both sides, I'm like, oh my God, fucking your smooth brains. The assessment of the 3 days when it was Ukraine will fall in 3 days, that was a fucking American assessment. Now, there was Russian officials say it will be within a few days. That happened, but it was actually from American officials. Now, this was because, without Western support, you got to remember, we still, before this war, we pumped in a lot of stuff. Like before the war, we still had a shitload of intel, javelins, NLAWs, training teams. There was still a shitload of that stuff going in, man, before the war too. But with none of that support, it would have been a couple of days run over the top. That's how it would have gone. And the intel one, people don't realize how big that would actually be. Like there is a Poseidon-style aircraft or something along those lines in like the Black Sea aloft every single minute of the fucking day, or in Poland giving like intel on the ground, flying in international or Polish airspace or the whole fucking time. You can look at it on the radars, providing intel in. And the new grant that Biden's trying to get through at the moment at $25 or $27 billion currently, it was like the breakdown of it was there's billions for like maintaining the intel support, flying satellites. So why do you think there's been so many Russian officers fucking killed? Like, these high ranking Russian officers, you don't lose that many fucking generals. And that's not purely just Russian incompetence. There's a lot of Russian incompetence there, but it's a lot of, hey, yeah, we're tracking this guy. If you send a bomb to this grid reference, you're probably going to hit someone. There's a lot of that, man. Like the HIMARS. The HIMARS do not fire without like Western fucking stuff. Which is the way you fight a war. Who's got all the satellites and the planes? Yeah, awesome. But without that support, man, without Western support, but Western support is American support, really. Like it just is. Like Australia could not fight shit without America, and vice versa. Like it just is.
Yeah. Did you meet many Americans or Europeans or Australians on the ground fighting?
Oh, fuckloads, man. Fuckloads. So I've actually lost 2 guys that I served with have actually died in Ukraine fighting. And I'm from a small army, man, in a small country. I've met tens and tens of Americans, heaps of Australians, Germans, Poles, everyone, Russians fighting there, like fighting for Ukraine. Huge, man. Yeah, the foreigners, and that's one of the big things I do is interviews with foreign. And if you actually want me to set you up with anyone, absolutely, I'm happy to do it offline. With these guys who are fighting in Ukraine, who have gone over there to fight, and some of them are just brutally honest about like, oh no, I don't really care who wins. I just wanted to go and fight a war. I actually just wanted to be in a conventional war and kill a tank with a fucking javelin. Like it's like, oh, okay. And then others are like, I saw what has happened in these massacres and this and that and whatever, and I will fight. So it sort of goes on that spectrum. But plenty of guys from all different backgrounds. I know a guy who has never actually, I'm actually interviewing him the next couple of weeks because he's just been wounded coming home, but he never actually served in the army. He got denied from the Australian army for like some injuries and shit. And he's like, oh, well, fuck you guys, I'll go fight in a real war. And he went over there and he's been fucking hitting it out like hard. Yeah. Like he's sending me videos and I'm like, bruh, you realize you've got more combat experience than 99% of the force.
Yeah. Are they fighting in the Ukrainian army or as part of foreign units or as like contractors or how's that work?
A bit of both, man. So the Foreign Legion is fucking
like French Foreign Legion.
No, like the Ukrainian Foreign Legion.
Okay.
That's a little bit like how you fucking going. Like it's a lot of problems in the Legion. Like even Ukrainian media has picked up how many problems are in that fucking Legion.
Was that newly created for this, or was it created? Okay,
created after the beginning of the war to have foreigners in there, but has just been riddled with problems the entire time. Riddled with issues. Shocking. So a lot of the guys sort of get into that and they're like, fuck this, and then actually go join the Ukrainian military. So join like the ZSU, actually join, the actual military. But there's a large contingent. And I was talking to this German guy and I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck are you doing? There's a lot of guys form their own units. So it's just like, we got these weapons. We bought our own night vision. We bought our own sights. We've bought weapons. Like they're all their own shit. And they've like, we've just made a section of 4 dudes and we just drive to the front line.
They just want to get after it.
And I'm like, I'm talking to this German dude. I'm like, how is that? Like, how is your legalities around that at war? Like, okay,
what do they say?
Saying foreigners can go and fight for a foreign army. That's one thing of an allied country. But it's another thing where these guys have just started their own like little militia and they're just out there fucking shooting it up. And the French one's called Task Force Baguette. And there's all these other ones. My mate sent me a photo the other day. Australian bloke, I know, they've all got mohawks and they call themselves whatever fucking thing. Like, it's like, what the fuck? Like, they're just forming their own fucking, some of it's the fucking Wild West out there. Now, the Ukrainians are actively trying to like absorb these into legitimate units. But, there's a lot of that. They've just bought, they'll see fundraisers. Yeah, we want to buy a fucking 1995 Land Cruiser. We want to buy a Land Cruiser, weld in some fucking steel in the doors, paint it green in the fucking garage. Yeah. Buy some M4s, buy whatever, and then just fucking, it's fucking hectic, man. I've been there like, bro, that sounds fucking fun. Like shit. And there's a lot of that. And a lot of them then make up like SF units in the actual military and stuff. So the left and right of ARC is huge. And there's a lot of foreigners too who are not doing anything, who are there taking Instagram photos, raising millions of fucking dollars and have never been out of Kyiv.
No kidding.
The most infamous one is like maybe James Vasquez, raised, American bloke, said all this shit of what he did and didn't do it in the American military, and then raised hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars by taking some photos, like in front of, out in the, if I could just go take a photo in my yard, just sitting in a bush and be like, I'm in fucking Ukraine in my cams. Like that wouldn't be fucking hard. And people donated money, whatever. And there's a lot of these people raising millions. Oh yeah. Raising millions for fucking doing nothing. So there's a big part of that too. I just did an interview with a guy who's been over there since actually before the war. He got there in like 2015 and has been fighting, well, before this invasion, I should say. He's been there since the 2014, like annexation of areas. And that he'd been there for ages. And he's like, I've seen all these foreigners come in who are just on Instagram who I've never fucking seen at the front line. Like they're not there. Like, how did you go from the Maccas at Kyiv to the front line within 2 hours? Like, no, you're sitting out somewhere in a fucking bush taking photos, or, you've seen a tank park somewhere, you take it. And that's huge, man. He's like, oh man, it's like unbelievably. And I know it as well. We called them, when we were there, we called them the fictional characters of Ukraine. That they're these fictional characters who are just living their own Call of Duty life, but they're not actually doing anything. They're just taking money. And, there's all these stories and receipts, and in some cases, even receipts people have found of, you've raised this much money, but then you're going to all these brothels and you're drinking all these fucking Jack Daniels and all this shit. Like, it's like, what the fuck? Like, that's donation money, but where there's money, there's scumbags, mate. And money's there. And this is people once they start making some money, go a bit fucking, and you would have seen this with other, like, with people, their colleagues, I guess, of yours who have got successful, they fucking change dramatically. Everyone has this where, whatever, and they start getting some money and they just shift that, people might go there for the right reason, and then they start seeing the bank account tick up fucking commas in it, and they're like, fuck, okay, I ain't doing that shit. Am I going to die? Going back to the fucking States, living in Miami. So there's absolutely that. Absolutely. So that it's the only fucking NGO, bro, the only NGO I've fucking seen past fucking Dnipro, which is still like 400 Ks to the front line, is World Central Kitchen. They're the only fucking, I've spent months out there at the front lines. The only fucking one is World Central Kitchen. I've not seen any of the, and there's thousands there, apparently. I've never fucking seen, and I could not have missed them. Like, I'm in Bakhmut. I'm in, there's a town called New York there. I'm in Seversk. I'm in these fucking areas. You can see where the Russian positions are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where the fuck are these? And World Central Kitchen is, 20 Ks back, making meals to living. Like, I'm like, they're doing the NGO work.
Interesting.
I'm not saying that there's not NGOs work in the front line. There are some small guys who are getting some fucking real work done.
Yeah.
But a lot of these big ones are doing fucking nothing. The guys who are really working hard is some of these guys like doing demining work. Ryan Henderson, I think. He wrote a book, Tip of the Spear, a Green Beret bloke. He's out there. He's doing like demining work. But these like legit guys, because they're not like these Yahoo narcissists, like fucking look at this tank sort of photos, they're not getting the financial support of like big backing, because the way to get financial support is the more like, public you are, the more you'll get. But the guys who are really doing shit are not fucking public, man. They're just digging out mines, or they're delivering food, or they're, doing work for babushkas. Like, I remember I was in Kramatorsk, which is still at that point, say 20 Ks, 30 Ks in the front line.
Yeah.
And hey, we can't find anyone to drive this babushka down the road to get her chemotherapy. Now, me, myself, I jumped on that. Like, I'll take a day out and I'll 100% do that. Like, fuck yeah. In an area still, very, that's very hot, because we were taking her to an area northeast, I think, of Kramatorsk, which was, actively still getting some shit come in. Or at least to pick her up, to bring her in to do it. But I'm like, I'm just a journalist out here with a car. I'll do that any day of the fucking week. But where the fuck are all the other NGOs doing this? Like, there's meant to be these thousands of people in here getting tens of millions of dollars from donations and shit. Where the fuck are you? Like, why the fuck am I driving this person? I'm happy to do it. But like, I'm also not getting like, donations to do it. Yeah, it's a lot of that, man. I see journalists out there. I see soldiers and World Central Kitchen, and fucking very few others out there.
Wow.
What's shit on the donations front? Like, people talk about like corruption in the money of, like, people often bring up the $100 billion of American money. of that, I'm like, well, whatever. There's probably some, whatever. I'm more like, can we add up how many billions got sent from America in private donations to Ukraine? So how many Americans, sent, I'm going to send $10, $5, $100, $1,000 of donations to, this bloke is doing this or this. Now, to get those details is probably barely fucking impossible, but it would be in the billions of dollars. Like, it would probably be way more than that. How much of that money just got pissed away by these other Westerners doing whatever work over there? Probably the fucking majority of it. Like, yeah, man. Like, there are some fucking legit scams going over in Ukraine of like Westerners raising money for doing fucking nothing. Yeah.
Wow. That's wild to hear. I hadn't really thought about that part of it.
I'd say that's way worse. I'd say that's way, way worse.
Man, that is crazy. How about, did you report on atrocities on both sides? Did you hear rumors? Did you see things with your own eyes on that side of things, on the war crime atrocity side?
Look, personally, no. I've heard a lot of it. Like, don't get me wrong, I've heard fucking heaps of it. And seen other reporters do it too. I was in Bucha, Irpin after the fact, after the mass graves were exhumed and all this, so I don't really have a say on that. I just wasn't there. And it's hard after the fact to tell if something was an atrocity, war crime, or just, it was just part of war. But of course I've seen all the videos online of executions of Ukrainians, executions of Russians, tormenting. I've seen all that, and as you know, POW puck ruling is very tight. Is very tight around what you do with prisoners you've taken or detainees you've taken, and filming them in their face and this and that and bashing. That's not part of it. But I come from an area where I've never fought in a conventional war like that either. So we did it back in the day too. But it's not as public anymore. It wasn't as public back then. Like back in the world wars, the treatment of prisoners that's why we developed all these rules. But there's absolutely been executions on both sides. Horrible, horrible stuff of people, and it is horrible. And I've had some talks with some Russian soldiers as well who I'm coming up on the podcast and stuff, and I've had one and they speak of it on the other side too. So sadly, war crimes are not uncommon. And look at some of the drone videos. Look at some of the drone videos from either side. You're like, hang on, this guy's lost his fucking legs. He's trying to put on tourniquets. He's unarmed, and you're dropping grenades on him. Like, hey, what the fuck is that being celebrated for? Like, that's it. Like, hey, I completely get. I'm a fucking infantryman. I completely know. Yep, we need to kill the enemy, but well, that's not really on. Like, and no one will pull it up. No one will pull it up unless it's happening to a Ukrainian from the Russians. But there's some horrible stuff, man. You can log on Telegram for 5 minutes and see heinous war crimes. Everything from fucking beheadings through to balls getting cut off and grenades dropped on guys who are now non-combatants, targeting civilian areas. All of this, man. It's it's shocking.
Yeah. How did you talk to anyone who lost a family member to a suspected abduction, like a wife, daughter, child taken from Ukraine, taken east into Russia?
No, I haven't actually at all. No, it happens, but I'm just personally no. It's probably most of my Ukrainian friends and contacts are similar fighting age people, similar age to me. So they're early mid-20s, so they probably not have younger kids or whatever. So no, I haven't really come across it on time.
Yeah, I've seen you did a video recently on UAVs, drones. What did you see from the beginning of the war to what's happening now as far as the use of drones off the shelf, commercial type, and military intelligence, sourced?
Yeah. Oh, bro, drones have, thank fuck guys like you and I who are off the ground now that drones have become a fucking thing. And in that video, I talked to a bloke from over in Perth, SAS guy, who basically said, thank fuck we were in Afghanistan, before drones, because instead of losing 40 guys, we lost 400. Because how the fuck do you combat an FPV drone that you build in your fucking built on your desk here for $400 that can fly at 100 miles an hour with an RPG warhead on it. That has fucking 5Ks of range for a few $100. How do you counter that?
Mm-hmm.
And an analog controller and stuff. So the jamming doesn't even work that well. Like it works, but it's not as good. Like all of these factors. The drones, there's been a big shift. In the beginning, it was more DJI style ones for like reconnaissance surveillance and military style, like the Turkish Bayraktar drone had a big effect in the beginning. And then now it's really shifted into these cheap FPV drones or DJI like Mavics types with dropping grenades, dropping warheads, but it's really shifting into that suicide FPV drone. What are unbelievably fast, unbelievably deadly. And all the guys I speak to are like, that's the last thing we want to come across is a drone. Like that is the biggest killer out there is drones, not artillery, not mines. It's fucking drones because they'll just target you in windows, in bunkers, everywhere. As well as Russia has had a lot of success with their Iranian-style drones as well. A lot of success with those. Cheap as fuck. And this is the thing, is war, war and money matters. That, hang on, this is a $20,000 fucking drone and to shoot it down, you're using potentially a $5 million missile. How long does that last for? And I can't believe that Russia hasn't just overwhelmed the air defense. Like what I don't get of why they're not doing, and no one can really answer why this isn't happening, is like say the Patriot systems, all these other systems, they don't have like a Patriot may be able to track hundreds of targets, but it will only have, each system only has like a 6 or 12 missiles, something like it's very few missiles. Maybe it's 4 per kit, but it's not that many all up. I don't see why they can't just overwhelm that system in a night and then just bomb the fuck out of everything in one big attack. So there's definitely a question of that. But the drone warfare, man, from your big military style ones to your little ones has been just game changing. And I don't see what the fuck the West is going to do about it because one, we don't have a good, like everything, offensive weapons get built first and the defensive weapons come second. But I don't see a good defensive weapon for drones that is actually viable and cheap, like at least equivalent value. If you're hitting a fucking hypersonic missile from Russia with a $5 million Patriot or $3 million Patriot, it makes sense. Like, yeah, that's pretty similar. But if you're using that system, now I know the Patriots aren't used that much for drones, but they have been. If you're using that on a $20,000 drone, that doesn't fucking make sense. Like, and this is the problem the West is going to be facing with these drones. And I have guys in the drone community, like in the private industries on these drones, and they're like, man, these are so fucking deadly. Yeah. Like we're putting, this much of explosives on them and this and that. You're like, fuck that. Like you can learn how to fly an FPV drone in an afternoon, on your computer on a little controller. Like I've done it, and I'm fucking an idiot. So they're a big issue, man. Drones are a big, big issue.
Yeah. What did you think when you saw the Wagner group reporting, turning around, heading towards Moscow, getting, what did they say, 125 miles, and then having some sort of a conversation and then heading for Belarus? And then, of course, then that was a little while back. And then today we have the leader of Wagner group shot out of the sky.
Yeah. I was fucking pissed because I missed like that whole little incursion or excursion to Moscow from Wagner because I was at the airport in Dallas about to fly to Australia as it happened, and the next fucking 17 hours I was just sitting on a plane like, I wonder what's happening. I still don't know what to read of it, man. Like, and people seem split 50-50 on whether it was purposeful or not, like whether it was part of getting Wagner out, getting a reason to get them out of Wagner to move them into Belarus to the trained Belarusian army, like without any like official like training stuff. Like there's all of that. Or was it just a small group of guys who were pissed off at Moscow? And it wasn't as many as people said. Like I've seen a few breakdowns who are like, it was being reported as 20,000, and they're like, well, we look at the convoys and we're like, well, those vehicles only have say 4 pers per vehicle. And there's only X amount of vehicles. They more believe it was in the hundreds or low thousands, rather than the tens of thousands being reported. So I still, I guess today changes a lot because fucking Prigozhin was most likely fucking taken out. I guess that changes, and I haven't really sat down, knuckled down, and actually thought about what that means yet. But absolutely,
we should say this is initial reporting because it just happened a couple hours ago when we're recording this. So when this thing drops, some other information may have come to light. So while we're recording this, though, that's at least what's being reported.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. So I really don't know what to think. I thought it was going to be they're moving out, retrain Belarus, and then Belarus then getting in the fold. Because that would raise huge problems for Ukraine, man. Massive problems. Because you've opened up a whole nother front line. Even if the Belarusian army sucks, it opens up a whole nother front line, and Ukraine's already stretched pretty thin. That's what I thought it was going to be. But now Wagner's got massive influence in Africa. Like they've got huge influence in Africa now. So I don't really know what to read of it. And I was thinking in the beginning, I'm like, as we said, Prigozhin's been taken out today. But what I was sus on in the beginning was how wasn't Prigozhin killed in any look at all these political figures who go up against Putin, or journalists that write against Putin. Next thing they're falling out a window, or they've slipped in the shower, or they've had some fucking acid. Where I was like, how does he just get away with it? And everyone and all these guys get immunity. They've all got immunity, and they're taken out. So it seemed he got off too easy. But now the plane going down, but I know a few guys who do some research for me, like Wagner's pissed off. So it's like, well, I don't know how this works, man. I don't know where this goes from now. It's hard to read. And it's something we're going to have to know. We may never know. We don't know how those intelligence services in Russia are actually operating either. To take out guys, to not the KGB did some fucking dodgy shit back in the day, and the FSB is just a fucking variant of that under a different name. Taking out guys, pushing things to look a different way. So I don't know, man. I don't know really about that incursion into Moscow. Nor do I know about this fucking plane. It's just crazy, and that's crazy, man. What happened? Shit. The fucking wing fell off. What? Holy shit. But the thing is too, there's this bit of who did it? Was it Ukrainian partisans, or was it whatever? And it's there's got to be this idea of a degree of the war getting worse too, because if it is Ukrainian partisans took out Prigozhin, Prigozhin's he's just a financer of Wagner, but there's plenty of he's just one guy in the leadership structure. There's heaps of other guys who finance, owners, all this. Well, Wagner's out of Ukraine and they weren't returning. As far as I was aware yesterday, the ISW had pretty good intel that they're going to Africa. That's it. Now, if it was partisans took him out, well, Wagner Group under all these other structures could be well, we're coming back. And Wagner, man, they've got a lot of conscripts. They've also, I know guys who fought them who say, mate, they have got some very, very good fucking soldiers with a lot of experience in there. They've been fighting in Syria, Libya, all these places for a fucking long time. They've got a lot of experience, a lot of good kit. There are some guys in there who really know what they're fucking doing in some of the more SF style. At the end of the day, Wagner fucking took Bakhmut, man. Yes, at a huge cost, but also huge cost to Ukraine. Ukraine was pumping in everything to try and stop them, and they still advanced.
Yeah.
Wagner, I don't think people should underestimate a private military like that. You're talking 60,000 guys. That's huge. You've got planes and tanks and that. That's a big force, man. That's a problem. That's not something people pay them off, and you're I wouldn't discount them yet from any of this, especially now they're fucking pissed off. Yeah. Fuck, they might just go on a fucking suicide mission, man. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it now.
Yeah,
I've got to do a video on it today after this. So I fuck knows what I'm going to say. Maybe I'm airing out some stuff to you to then be right, okay, what am I going to say in the video tonight?
Yeah, no, and so you get a lot of your first hand. You're going to primary sources on the ground, and you're talking to people in Ukraine. Where else are you going to get news? Maybe not just on Ukraine, but trusted sources that having seen
what you've seen on the ground in Ukraine, having looked at a variety of other media out there, have you said, oh, this was way off, this was way off, oh, I'm not trusting those sources again? Like, where do you go to get your news in general these days, and maybe specifically on Ukraine if you're not getting it from a source who's on the ground there?
Yeah, like I've pretty much, other than quotes, I've given up mainstream media. What the mainstream is really good for is, okay, with quotation marks, what did, so yeah, like for example, yesterday I used Yuri Inyat, who's the Air Force spokesman for the Ukrainian Air Force. And it was like CNN, who I'd never go to for anything, but they have like his interview fully translated in quotation. So I'll be like, right, I'll pull it, because that was what was actually fucking said. But saying that, you also need to look what was said before it and after it, because you can easily, like, someone could let a quote this interview of you and I and make us look like a fucking asshole.
Yeah, context.
With no context. So you need to do that. But mainstream is really efficient at that, way more efficient than I am, because even if he's in an interview speaking Ukrainian or Putin speaking Russian in an interview, the turnaround time for me to get it translated, whatever, across, I'm not going to be able to do. So I use it for that. Twitter has some really good open source guys who are like geolocating things. So, a T90 is being killed and it is at this fucking, this is a photograph off Google Maps and this is where that actually is. Fuck, who else? Telegram's a big one. The problem I've got, because I've got a lot of people ask me this, I'm like, the problem I've got is because I study this full time, I sort of know what's bullshit and what's not. So I could read a CNN article and go, oh, that's really well written because that, I believe in that and that seems legit. Or I could read one on them and be like, oh my God, that's fucking bullshit from another source. So it's so like even journalist to journalist matters too. So there's not like one place I go for media. Social media is where it's it, man, because I follow a heap of guys. I don't even follow them. I just look at other sources. I look at like very pro-Ukrainian sources, very pro-Russian sources, and try and find a medium ground in there. Like, for example, like the there was a center, what was it? Like a convention center thing hit the other day, northeast of Kyiv. And it was being reported, of course, by the Ukrainian sources. Russia missile attacked just a civilian center with, nothing going on there, and school kids and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, oh, fuck, that's horrible. All these people died at a bus stop and this and that. And then I went on to the pro-Russian sources and they'd pulled out all this stuff of, no, they're holding a fucking drone conference there. There was a show and tell for military drones at this fucking thing. So then I'm in between of like, well, the Russians, of course, are at fault for firing the fucking missile and killing civilians. They did that. But who the fuck is holding a drone conference in the middle of a fucking city on a public holiday where everyone's fucking there? There's double responsibility here. Like, you need to take, both sides need to take fucking response. Like, yeah, the missile like half missed and killed civilians at the bus stop. That's horrible. But you also take responsibility for holding a fucking drone thing in the center of this city on a religious holiday where people are going to be there. And you've had a leak in your intel command because, it wasn't meant to be public before a few hours. And you're like, a few hours? It takes me 30 seconds to be able to ring someone on a fucking aircraft and be like, drop a bomb at this grid. So you've got an intel leak somewhere and you've been fucking stupid about where it is. So, and something like that, then I will both sources that and go, look, this is what happened. These civilians got killed. Horrible, blah, blah, blah. But look, these were the flyers for this fucking event before this that has come up, that has been acknowledged that it's real. And I've gone through, the organizer's Facebook page and this and that. So, but even I get caught in some bullshit too. So it's hard to do. And even I say to people, do not just do one source. Like, even me, if you just listen to me, you're not getting the best information, because I see things through, of course, my lens, the way I see it. And I'm a Westerner who we see things in a different way. We see things very differently to a lot of people around the world. Just the way I was raised, my I don't have a religious background, for instance, say things like that, because, Australia, I'm born in Australia. We're a very non-religious country. We're a very free and open country, a very wealthy country. So our vision, we see things, is greatly influenced by our upbringing. So you need to take things from different perspectives too. And you need to have a look at, why is Russia doing this? and maybe have a listen to some, like, don't go down the rabbit hole of propaganda, but like, you can't look with our mindset we can't judge with our mindset either Ukraine or Russia. They're completely different countries to us, different backgrounds, different people. So you need to expand your horizons on this. And I think this with everyone. Like, if you're going to listen to just political things, say, if you just listen to Biden, that's a problem. Or if you just listen to Trump, that's also a fucking problem. You're in this echo chamber of one side, and you typically, once you enter an echo chamber, you just keep going down that path. That's where we've got these alts that, you know, countries like Australia, America, whatever, we have like these, you know, the left and right of politics used to be like this. Now it's like fucking this because of these echo chambers and people like, oh, disregard everything the Democrats say or everything the Republicans say. You start going further down that path. And this is what I think of Ukraine, Russia, is if you just listen to what the Mosaic pro-Ukrainian account says, what, you know, Visegrad 24 says, you'll end up just pushing way down this. And that bomb attack was just an attack on a civilian epicenter convention. That was it. Or if you just listen to Russian news, it'll be, this was just a drone conference where they're flying around drones and, you know, whatever. Like, you've got to find a middle ground somewhere. And it's very, very difficult. Like, that's what I try and do, but even I'm fucking wrong a lot. Like, and journalists are wrong a fucking lot, man. The beauty on YouTube is you're sort of you're corrected by numbers. So, you know, top comments rise to the top. And if I get something wrong, then read the fucking couple of top comments and people are like, hey, Willy, this was incorrect, or that was incorrect, or my take is this. And that's the beauty of social media is, if you want to know how people really feel about an article, read the comments, like of an article on Facebook or, you know, YouTube video. Read the fucking comments, and they're pretty based all the time. And that's the beauty of YouTube, or any social. So read the comments, go through it. There are some really good guys out there who do some good work, but it's hard. It's hard. If I can't get it from the source, I'm always a bit skeptical. Like for existence, the idea that the Patriots have been shooting the Caliber cruise missiles down. Sorry, not Caliber cruise, the hypersonic missiles. I was like, well, I haven't seen fucking footage of that. Like, you know, people have said they can't, like some really like experts on this system. You know, there's no evidence of this. You're just saying that it has. So I in the beginning, I didn't believe it. But then now we've seen that Russia is now not using those hypersonics against Kyiv. They're only using them in areas in which Patriots are not anymore. So the Patriots are in Kyiv. So, and, you know, Ukraine reported that the Patriot was shooting down hypersonics. Next thing, we're not seeing hypersonics target Kyiv anymore, only other cities. That to me is enough sort of circumstantial evidence that, okay, then they're probably having an effect on these, that they're not actually, that they probably can't get them in anymore. But at the end of the day, it's circumstantial. Would that hold up in like a court of law, like beyond reasonable doubt? No. And journalism is not beyond reasonable doubt. That's the fucking problem. Is there's a lot of people just spewing nonsense and people just eat it up. You just make shit up. People can do that, man. And I know I'd be significantly more successful if I did. If I went on because I'm pretty unbiased. So I have a lot of fucking people hate me. So every video I do, 50% of people are going to like it and 50% are going to hate it both times. What means my audience is limited, because I think there's a limitation these days of like critical thinkers. I really think that's the biggest problem facing the West is critical thinking people. Like if I say Russians are humans too, next thing I'm a fucking piece of shit. The same as the all lives matter sort of argument. You're a piece of shit if you think this. Anyway, if I leant harder into one way, like if I just leant into the pro-Russian side or the pro-Ukrainian side, my audience would double. But I couldn't do that to myself.
Interesting. So what's next for you then? Are you going to go, do you have plans to go back to Ukraine? Are you going to continue to interview people and get their perspective of what their time was like on the ground? Do you have plans for a book, not just about your whole journey? What's next for you?
I don't think I'll return to Ukraine. There's been some sort of people don't like me because I've come out with some shit that I know is true. So like the Ukrainian Center for Disinformation called me an information terrorist, which is a pretty big fucking branding, considering I can back up everything like everything was geolocated, whatever.
Man, you should make t-shirts. You should make t-shirts that say that.
Yeah, literally. So I don't know if I'd return to Ukraine. So I don't know. I don't know if that's on the cards.
Yeah.
I'll still, of course, be interviewing people. The next step for me is actually interviewing some Wagner guys as well, because I find that world very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a long time sort of finding guys who can speak English, things like this. So it's difficult. I find the interviews very interesting because that's sort of firsthand. People get like the information that I get. Like when I talk to these guys about, hey, what happened today? And I do it in a video, it's sort of firsthand from the source.
Right.
So I've thought about going to Africa, but to be honest, at the moment, just funding wise, whatever, I just need to spend a bit of time at home doing, these videos, whatever, make some fucking money and then do more of these trips. A book in the future is, because I've already written the first part of like a book for like my journeys. So so far with military, cancer, whatever, all of that. And really, I just need to get on top of it and find some time and knuckle down and do it. I don't know. You're probably a lot different to me, but the last thing I want to ever do is sit down and write. I'm like, oh, fuck this.
So I love doing the most.
Oh man, I've never got I'm guessing there's like everything. If there's a hump you've got to get across until it becomes enjoyable. It's like running. Running fucking sucks when you begin, but then once you're a few months in, you love it. I'm guessing writing's like that, but I just never have got past that. Like, oh nah. So I've done it. Like I've done. I think I'm about 50,000 words, but I'm just like, oh.
There you go.
So eventually.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a great start. By the time I get to 30,000 words, I'm like, I have a book. For whatever reason, that's kind of the number when I get to, I'm like, okay, I'm on the path, and so 50 is good. That's a solid number right there.
Oh, right. Oh, cheers. So I don't really know what's next, but like I was in Syria and Turkey this year when the earthquake happened. So there's a lot of like reactive stuff like that. So I'll jump across and do, like, the earthquake happened on a plane, Turkey, jump the border into Syria, do some whatever with the rebels, like some random bits and pieces like that.
Man, that's wild. And once again, it's Willy Beating Cancer on the Instagram. And what is the YouTube? Again, it'll be in the show notes and everything, but say it again.
Willy OAM.
There it is. And it's fantastic. So people should definitely check that out. You can spend a lot of time. There's a lot of interviews on there now. But it is incredible, the stories that you're getting from people, and really adds a lot of color, a lot of context to the things that you may be hearing from other sources. So man, it's incredible what you're doing out there. And thanks for the inspiration also. The way that you've handled things since we were first introduced years ago, it's inspiring to me, and I know a ton of people who you'll never hear from, but you've impacted their lives in a positive way that you'll never know. So thank you.
Oh mate, no, thank you very much, and just thanks for everything. And to plug something, and I think this is probably for Americans to be very good with this war, to get a more perspective. I did an interview with a guy who was an American veteran, and he actually ended up joining the Azov Battalion, which is like the one you'll hear about, the very infamous Azov. There's an interview I did with him. It's like 3 hours. It talks about the ups and downs, the ins and outs of that unit, his combat experience, whatever there. I think for a lot of Americans who are unsure on this war and how to feel about some rumors you hear, whatever, and about the reality of combat, like I think it's called I Lost Everyone, because he lost his whole unit twice.
I saw that, yeah.
He was the only survivor twice of attacks. Every single guy died but him. I think that gives a good perspective on war and like conventional style, large scale war. And he gives a good insight from like an American lad who served, young lad, about the politics, ins and outs and whatever, way better than I could probably say. So I think he's a really good lad for that.
Awesome, man. Thank you for spending so much time today, and this has been awesome, and hopefully we can meet up in person one of these days soon on one of your trips to the States or mine to Australia, or who knows where around the world we might run into each other as you're reporting and I'm doing some research or something like that. So man, it's been incredible to talk to you. It's been an honor for me to be able to talk to you today, so sincerely appreciate you taking the time.
Mate, thank you. Pleasure's all mine. Okay. Have a great day, man.
You too. Take care.
Okay. See you, bro. Look after yourself.
You too. Black Rifle Coffee Company. You can help Black Rifle Coffee raise $1 million to benefit veterans through the boot campaign. All you need to do is grab a can of ready-to-drink coffee online or from your local grocery or convenience store. The Boot Campaign is one of the most renowned veteran-focused nonprofits in the country, working tirelessly to provide life-changing aid and benefits to service members and their families. Join forces with Black Rifle and the Boot Campaign from May through the end of the year, where every can of ready-to-drink coffee you buy will contribute to making this massive donation possible. Black Rifle ready-to-drink coffee is available in several great-tasting flavors on the Black Rifle Coffee website, at your local convenience or grocery store, and no matter where you are, you can fuel your caffeine fix while supporting veterans. Every time you crack open a can of ready-to-drink, you'll be making a huge difference in the lives of veterans and their families. Black Rifle Coffee is committed to serving the veteran community, and with your help, we can all continue to make a difference. Let's raise a can together to keep fueling Americans for a good cause. Check out blackriflecoffee.com/dangerclose and use code DangerClose20 at checkout for 20% off your purchase and your first coffee club order. blackriflecoffee.com/dangerclose. Drink up. Welcome to the gear highlight portion of the Danger Close podcast. First off, thank you to Badass Workbench. That's Badass-Workbench who built this workbench desk table. Great group of people over there, so be sure and check them out. Also, Fort Knox, they make awesome safes. Absolutely loving this one over here. And where should I start? Probably right here, officialjackcarr.com. Check out, this is a beer stein/coffee mug. So dual use technology right there. You can check that out. And True Precision. So that's true-precision.com. They did some aftermarket work on a P365 for me, which is right here, and absolutely love this pistol. So I have a couple things from True Precision. You should definitely check them out. That thing's pretty solid. So thank you guys. And let's see, watches. If you've been following me for a while, you know I am a watch person. This Doxa sub, a 50-year journey here by Dr. Peter Millar. And if you are a watch person, you probably know the Doxa from the Clive Cussler, Dirk Pitt novels, and from Jacques Cousteau's Wrist, and also from Robert Redford's Wrist in 3 Days of the Condor, which is based on the book 6 Days of the Condor by James Grady. So right here, I got my sub 300T on right here, but this is an awesome book for those who are interested in history of Doxa. So very cool. And Tacticalories.com. I have some new seasoning from them right here, and I'm going to try this out tonight. So Tacticalories.com. Thank you guys. And look at this. So Faro Concepts. And man, I had Justin Melnick on the podcast not too long ago. So check out FERRO Concepts. And this, he saw the rig that I was using, and it's a little older, a little heavier. So he said that I needed something new. And then this showed up from Faro Concepts. So I'm going to get this thing all set up and right out of the box. So with plates, man, this thing is a lot lighter than what I was carrying downrange, and I'm super excited to get this thing set up. So check out Faro Concepts and what they have going on. Justin Melnick, thank you so much for sending that. Really appreciate it. And Faro Concepts, thank you guys as well. They included a couple other things to include this trauma kit here from North American Rescue. I have a bunch of North American Rescue tourniquets and a bunch of their stuff, some platform bags of theirs as well, both inside and in my vehicles. So yeah, check them out, North American Rescue, Faro Concepts, and I think that does it for today. Oh, Ball and Buck. My friends at Ball and Buck, that's what this t-shirt is from right here. You can check out my website also. And I have a limited edition Ball and Buck collaboration shirt on there that comes with a signed copy of my latest novel, Only the Dead. So you can check that out at officialjackcarr.com. And that is it for today. Take care out there. Thank you for tuning in to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. To find out more about Matt Willy Williams, be sure and follow him on Instagram at willy.beating.cancer. And check out his YouTube channel at WillyOAM. That's at WILLYOAM. You can follow me on the social channels at Jack Carr USA. Officialjackcarr.com is the website. Click on shop in the upper right-hand corner for the merch. And if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure and leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you get
your podcasts. Until the next time, take care out there, stay safe, be strong, keep fighting.